на нього я востаннє. Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто буде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на ордів образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 248 of the news.
And of course, we're going to be reporting on the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine, and we have some good news. According to official Ukrainian Ministry of Defense reports, the Ukrainian armed forces have moved south of Svatove and are now clearly on the P-66 highway, which was being used as a vital supply line in between Svatove, a supply hub for the Russians, and Kreminna, which is still a battleground at the moment in between the Ukrainians and the Russians. This is massive news because this means that the Russian forces in Kreminna may be going without supplies, or they may have to reorganize their supply routes on a much farther, I guess you could say, route, meaning that there will be less supplies, it'll be more labor intensive to get them there, and so we may see Russian forces withdraw from Kreminna so that way they can find more favorable ground where they can be supplied a lot easier. This is great news, of course, and once again, it is stacking on to all the great news that we've had over these past few days of Ukrainian successes across the entirety of the front lines. And so with that, let's cover this whole entire northeastern area, all the way from north of Svatove near Troitsky, and all the way down to Kreminna as well, starting off in the north, where we saw today that the Ukrainians captured a decent amount of Russians that were, suffice it to say, poorly clothed and quite dirty. Here's the video.
Откуда?
Белгород. Белгород. Липецк. Белгород. Белгородская область. Владимир. Белгород. Белгород. Белгородская область. Белгородская область. Белгородская область. А там мы вашими засеяны.
12 человек. Раз, два, три, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
And that's the end of the video. One thing that I just found funny, Matthew, is it's like these Russians were all just standing here. The BMP-2, this is the Ukrainian one, was just driving by and they're like, wait, hold up. And they went outside and were like, okay, let's get a head count real quick. They just started counting them up. But
And what was he saying? Do we know?
well, apparently, from what I could tell, he asked these prisoners where they were from, and as they went down the line, they were naming off the town that they were from. From what we could get from the video, these appear to be conscripts. Also, if we go through it again, you can see that the condition of their clothes are massively different from soldier to soldier. Some of them aren't even wearing uniforms hardly, rather than a little scrap of some kind of camouflage. Like this guy, like what in the world? This guy looks like he just came out from under a bridge, and now he's in the Russian army. Like, they didn't even give him a new uniform. This guy, he's got like some kind of normal shirt. That's not the normal blue and white. I forgot the name of the shirt, but it's the little Russian naval shirt. That's not the normal one. So I don't even know what in the world that's supposed to be. And like this guy here, for some reason, man, I don't know why, but he's almost like a caricature. You know, like I don't even know how to explain it. Also, what's up with this?
I almost feel bad saying something about it, really.
I mean, yeah, kind of, but still, it is a little odd.
Vladimir.
Also, it doesn't even sound like he named off a town. He just said Vladimir, and they just moved on. You're like, okay, whatever.
Vladimir.
But anyways,
Maybe they're calling out the regions they're from.
and maybe, I don't know. Let me pull this up though. Let's see. Vladimir Oblast. There is an oblast called Vladimir, and there's actually a town called Vladimir. That is kind of bizarre. That's like having a town named like Matthew or Andrew or something, just to have a town named Vladimir, which is really weird. But let's go take a look at the town that this man is from. And I know that this is going to be a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I honestly have always skirted over Vladimir, never really took notice of it. In fact, I didn't even think about it until we pulled it up. So let's take a look at old Vladimir. Ah, yes. A first world country. You see that right there? You see how the paint's chipping off that building? That is first world superpower class paint right there. And that building is first class. I mean, like, look at this. It even says the Moskovsky National Bank. It's the Moscow National Bank. Look at that. Like, hell, you could rob the bank from your floor upstairs. You don't have to get a drill or anything. All you have to do is stomp really hard on the floor, and I'm sure it'll give way and you'll be right in the vault. I mean, like, Vladimir looks like a fine place. A beautiful city. And so with that, we can see where one of them was from, and of course a lot of them said they were from Belgorod, which is down here on the Ukrainian border pretty much. But nonetheless, it is great to see that they are continuing to take Russian prisoners at a pretty decent rate, and also a pretty high amount of them as well, 12 of them in total. With that, we're now going to be moving further down the line and towards the town of Svatove itself, where we saw today that the Ukrainians destroyed and abandoned BMP-2 from the Russian side. Apparently it was not recoverable, and so they decided to pop a grenade down inside of it and take it out. Also, let me remind y'all that this is a BMP-2M. You can see the Attack anti-tank guided missile launchers on the sides, meaning that this is one of the more expensive upgraded versions, but here's them destroying it.
Grenade!
When you see him pop the grenade in, climb on, boom shakalaka, and now there's a nice little fire. Really nice to see him. And also, it's pretty funny to see this guy, man, he jumped off the tank, and I have a feeling he had an idea of running, but then he was like, ah, whatever. And he just let it blow right there. He was like, ah, just wait. And then he got moving.
Yeah!
He wanted to play it off like he was cool.
Yeah, but still pretty cool to do, and it's nice to see that they are making sure that BMPs, armed personnel carriers, and tanks that they cannot take with them never fall back into Russian hands just in case. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and while we are here, we have made one small frontline adjustment right here. Right now, as far as we know, the Ukrainian forces are now on the, it says P66 right here, or as they call it, the T1303. And some of y'all may remember that a long time ago, the T1302 highway, if I can find it right here, was an incredibly important highway to keep hold of because it would supply the Ukrainian forces at Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, and eventually the Russians did overrun that supply line, which was one of the reasons why Ukrainian forces were beaten out of Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, although that was still a very tough fought battle and the Russians hardly won it. That still was a major factor in them losing Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, and we can almost see the exact reverse happening here. In between Svatove and Kreminna, this road supplied the majority of Russian forces down the entirety of this front line, and now that the Ukrainians have overrun it in that specific area and now control it, Russian supply lines have been completely cut in that area. There is one alternative that they can do, and real quick, we're going to be going up to this area and taking a quick look at it, and as we can see here, and let me just make sure, this appears to be a railroad. I was wanting to make sure there. It is a railroad. It's not a road, although that might be a service road beside it. No, it does. It's actually just a railroad. So there are no roads going from Krasnoyarsk down towards Kreminna. The only one that there is the P66. And it looks like on our front line, although it's not always entirely accurate as it is updated off of video footage and also picture evidence, it appears that the Ukrainian forces are also very close to the P66 down here, and so the supply lines to Kreminna may be entirely cut off. Russia's supply lines from Svatove will now have to take the long way around, driving all the way from Svatove back towards Starobilsk and then down towards Kreminna, if that is even possible. And so we may see that due to the supply shortages, Russian forces will be retreating from this area fairly soon, and the Ukrainians may be getting a little bit of ground free of charge without even having to fire a shot. And so with that, we're now going to be moving further down the lines to the area of Makivka, where we also saw some more Ukrainian artillery at work. And of course, the M777. And so, here's the video of them operating this beautiful Western-provided, British-designed and American-made piece of equipment. When you see them unloading it and preparing the charges, when you see the charges sitting on the ground and the M777 still being unloaded. We now see them preparing the piece to fire, ramming the charges and shells on home. Good lord!
Dang.
Dang, the thing turned into a bulldozer!
The ground didn't even hold it in.
Look at that thing go! I mean, like, if you were behind that plow, well, not really that plow, what should we call that, man? You support?
Yes, so.
If you were behind that, your leg would have been sheared off. Just look at that thing fly. I mean, like, it just almost went on a road trip. Good God, that was... Dang, I mean, if it wasn't planted...
The field is ready for planting.
And then, yeah, that field is ready for the next season of crops right there. And, oh my lord. We can see now that the first... And this is pretty funny, Matthew. The first time, you know, you see that the struts weren't really into the ground all too well. They fire the piece. It gets the ground ready for construction, and then on the second shot, the struts are so well into the ground that now it doesn't move at all. And some people are saying it's supposed to do that, and I haven't really seen that on a video before. I'm not going to doubt it, because why in the world would you dig them into the ground in the first place? And it seems like it really did start to support its recoil well after that first shot, but still, that was pretty crazy to see. We now see them packing up the M777. And look at that! Now that's pretty cool. It's like a Cheshire cat.
Did they do that for Halloween, maybe?
Maybe. They're getting a little spooky. Ooh. The only thing spooky is the Russians after they get hit by artillery because it's nothing but ghosts. Ooh. And so that pretty cool little paint job on this transport here. And also it's great to see that Ukrainian artillery is continuing to fire away at the Russians and also make it look incredibly cool. That's something that a lot of people always don't think about, but soldiers are normal folks just like y'all, and of course they like to have a little bit of fun and a little bit of humor here and there, and I think that this is one of their attempts at it, and I gotta say, a pretty solid one. I like it. They're now taking the M777 away to its next position, and with that, that's the end of the video, and a pretty neat one to see. It's always cool to see that American M777s, and also Western M777s in general, because this may have been provided by the Canadians or another similar country that also has M777s. It's very nice to see them on the front lines and still in use, and it's good to see that the Ukrainians covet them so well that they become a primary staple on the front lines in terms of artillery. With that, we're now going to be moving a little bit further down the front lines to the area of Cherno-Popivka, where we saw that a Su-34, a Russian Su-34, was conducting some close air support. And so with that, here's the video of this Su-34 doing a little bit of close air support. And it's kind of a little odd, and I'll explain why I think it's odd here in just a second, but let me try and get this in high definition. So this Su-34 is moving at about 400 miles per hour at about 500 feet above the ground, in a straight line. It appears to have already dropped its bombs, or not. Well, now it has. We can see the bombs exploding in the distance.
Ебать, он ебанул там нахуй. Ебать. Хохлы хоть радуются там, блядь.
And with that, that's the end of the video. But one thing I gotta say that's really weird, I don't know about y'all, but isn't it kind of weird knowing how bad, I guess you could say, man-pad air AA defenses are for the Russians, considering that a large amount of their aircraft have been shot down by the simple Stinger or an Igla, to see that an Su-34, a very expensive frontline bomber, is flying 500 feet above the ground, so it's in man-pad range, fairly slow, in a straight line for that long. It seems a little odd to me. I don't know about y'all, but I always suspicion a lot of things whenever I see the Russians in action. And then it's just one of those things right there where you're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I feel like that one may be a bit of a fake film by the Russians for propaganda reasons. But a plane flying that slow in a straight line that high off the ground, it was like 6 tree heights off the ground, or at least 7. for it to not get shot down, that's kind of odd. And also to see it not pop any flares whatsoever is also fairly odd, too. In case you all don't know about the Su-34, and you're like, what in the world is an Su-34? An Su-34 is a frontline bomber. It has a, I guess you could say, I don't know what to call it. It has a twin cockpit, so there's a pilot and a co-pilot. You can see that right here. And supposedly, this thing also has a toilet inside of it, so that way the crew can operate on extended missions. We don't really know a lot about it beyond that, but you can clearly see that this thing was designed off of the Su-27 airframe, and that's fairly, I mean, like, hell, it's not even like a indication. It's incredibly apparent. It's just a modified Su-27. From what we know, and we see some more pictures of it here, I believe the Russian Air Force is the only operator of the aircraft. They have 140 of these operational, and according to Wikipedia, which of course is about as reliable as we can get on stream with some quick information, but may not always be the right information, we can see that it carries a decent amount of payloads. It looks like it used some dumb bombs here, or maybe some laser-guided bombs, although I highly doubt the Russians have any of those left. But they're probably very close to being a 500-kilogram bomb. 1,500 kilograms didn't really look like the size that was used, but still, with that, I hope that provides a little bit of additional information about the Su-34 we saw, and still, I'm really on the fence whether that was for propaganda purposes or not. I think it most likely was, considering the circumstances, but with that, we're now going to be moving behind the lines to a very sweet little video. I thought this one was very nice, where we can see the Ukrainian soldier went through a lot of effort to return this little pup to its owners. Of course, a lot of people had to leave their villages and homes at the beginning of this war because the Russian forces were on their way, and when they left, they had to leave behind their dogs most times because most countries at that moment were not allowing Ukrainians to take their dogs with them whenever they became refugees and tried to travel to their country. And so for that reason, many dogs were sadly left to an unfortunate fate on the front lines. But we can see here, as Ukrainian forces passed through a village in the northeastern area, and they found one of these dogs that somehow has kept itself alive and well for this long, and they've now made it their mission to return this dog to their owner. And so with that, here's this sweet little video. It's 2 minutes long, and here it is. Sadly, I can't play the audio due to copyright reasons, but we can see the little dog right there. And we can see that it's been surviving in pretty rough conditions, but somehow made it through for quite a while. We now see it running up to the man to get a little bite to eat. And it was trained. Look at that. It's a cute dog. Matthew and me used to have a German Shepherd on our street called Dominic. It was a very sweet German Shepherd, just looked just like this one. And, of course, we had a lot of good childhood memories with that dog. It was a fun one. But still, it's sad to think that dogs like this were left on the front lines just to whatever fate they had to face because families couldn't bring them with them. But the soldiers...
Sad.
It really is, honestly. And we're about to see that the soldier's going to go through a decent amount of effort to try and find the family of this dog and return the dog to the family. We see him petting the dog, and the dog's now been put inside of the car. Yes, it's been put inside the car. It's getting around the guy's legs, getting out the door. And there's the family right there. And the dog was reunited. When you see the dog getting all the cuddles and petting in the world, now that's been reunited. And it's a super sweet video to see. It's one of those silver lining kind of things that you don't see a lot in a war, but it's always nice to see. It puts a smile on everyone's face. It's like, oh, isn't that nice? It's very surprising to see the dog survive that long, considering the conditions it was living in, and pretty much no one being in that village for months. When you see it's super happy, when you see one of them picking the dog up like a baby. And that dog is just happy. Look at that. Honestly, man, he kind of reminds me of Mr. Corgi.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And so with that, that's the end of that video. But I thought I would save that one for last in the northeastern area. Save a nice little sweet ending for this front line here. Of course, it has great news in this area. We have heard that the Ukrainians have made a small advance today, and it appears to be one that may be very detrimental to the Russian positions in this area. And of course, a nice little cherry on top, showing the dog being returned to their owners. With that, we're now going to be moving into Russia. Of course, we always like to move into Russia real quick to cover whatever kind of stupidity and weird nonsense is going on there, as we saw today that the Russian soldier used some Kubes, which are a certain kind of drone, and it looks like they used them in a training exercise. We don't know where in Russia, but it was somewhere inside the country, and so here's a video of the Russians using a Kube drone. We can see them getting them out of their cases and also putting up the launcher. For a second there, Matthew, I was actually like, what in the world? Like, when I saw that, I thought it was honestly like some kind of a RPG or something like that. I was like, when
that would have been the biggest RPG in history.
Yeah, I was like, when in the world did they make one like this? And then I saw the end of it, and I was like, oh, it's the launcher. We now see them getting the Kube ready to go. The Kube looks very similar in its design to the Shahed 136. They're now putting it on the launcher.
Запуск!
Well, dang. Just rip the thing apart, why don't you? Yeah, I hear a little...
Sounds like one of those Honda Civics, like at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, it kind of
does. You know what
does.
I'm talking about with that really loud exhaust?
Oh,
the
yeah!
VTEC.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. And that thing honestly sounded horrendous. Just listen to that stupid little thing. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like one of those cheap RC planes you get when you're getting into the hobby to have a little bit of fun. And it's got one of those stupid, cheap little electric motors on it that are way too high pitch. It sounds like that.
Yeah.
But what you see here is something very interesting, is that these Kubes may as well be smaller versions of Shahed 136s, because in the end, they are suicide drones. We see one hitting here, but we didn't see any Ukrainian forces there. But we can see that something has caught on fire.
Данный комплекс нам помогает для предотвращения наступательных действий противника.
They had to get all the remaining equipment left in the Russian Federation to make this man look well equipped.
Личный состав противника. Данным комплексом были поражены цели в лесном массиве при подготовке противником наступательных действий. Цель была у нас боевая машина пехоты и личный состав до 15 человек. По данным воздушной разведки были обнаружены и переданы нам координаты. При подготовке беспилотного ударного судна осуществили запуск, и по видеофиксации с нашего беспилотного разведчика было нанесено поражение точно в цель.
With that, that's the end of the video, but you can get a pretty decent look right there at how these little Russian suicide drones called Kubes operate. It's a very weird thing to see that it looks like they used that one in a training exercise, but then they also tailored in some, it appears to be combat footage, but at the same time, we didn't even see any Ukrainians there. All we saw is that something started to burn on the ground. So with that, that's the end of that kind of weird video, and we're now going to be making sure that I have no other Russian news to cover. We don't. So we're now going to be moving on into the location unknowns, into our first bit of the night, where we saw that a Russian MLRS had a little bit of a fiery and quite exciting cook-off, if you could call it that. But before we get to that, I saw that Matthew threw up a pretty interesting poll on the Kamikaze drones that we were just looking at. So real quick, can we cover that poll, Matthew?
Do you want to cover all of them or just that one?
We'll cover that one first and then move on to the others, if that's fine with you.
Okay, so this one about the Kamikaze drones says, do you think the manner in which Russia uses them is cowardly? It looks like 50% said yes, it is a cowardly method of war. 34% said not really, it is war. And 16% said no, war equals everything is fair game. Now for me, before the enforcer weighs in, I think it's cowardly. That's like sort of like sitting back and just sending in these really nasty and destructive drones just to kill civilians, essentially, is what it's doing. I think that if Russia could really be an effective fighting force, they wouldn't be using the drones quite like they're using them now. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would have to be honest. I think that kamikaze drones are really just a part of war these days, because the Ukrainians also use kamikaze drones to varying degrees as well. And I think it's just an extenuation of a precision guided munition. Because if, like with the philosophy of, they're just sitting back and they're firing from a distance and they're not really doing anything, you could apply that to like cruise missiles, really any kind of guided weaponry, they're just sitting back and they're launching it, like to even bring it into, I guess you could say, an American perspective, like a JDAM, which is a laser-guided bomb. We could say that that's kind of lazy of the pilot because, he's not really having to put himself directly on the line of fire. He's kind of dropping the bomb from miles behind. It just kind of glides itself into the target, or it just comes straight down from 30,000 feet. Either way...
For sure, you will say that Russia is using the drone specifically to kill civilians and not Ukraine.
In some instance, well, for the most part, from what we've seen with the Shaheds, they use the Shaheds entirely to attack civilians. So that is cowardly. But using them on the front line against other forces, I don't really consider that too much to be cowardly. But once again, context is a little important there, because I can see some people are saying, well, it's wrong to use them against civilians. Of course, it's wrong to use any weapon against civilians. I don't, and of course, I think that's kind of just a prerequisite to everything, because I've never heard anyone go, using an AK against civilians, that's fine. It's not, using a weapon of any kind against a civilian is not acceptable at all. But the question is that acceptable against frontline units? And considering that both sides are doing it, and it looks like everyone in the world is starting to develop them, I think it's just really the direction that war is going in. And as long as you can ensure that they're not being used against civilians, well, you have to do that with every single weapon. As long as you can make sure that they are being used only against the military and not against civilians, I think it's just really the way of war these days, and it'll most likely be heading in that direction as time goes on. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And it looks like a lot of people have some very interesting points in the comment section or in the live chat about whether it is good to use these drones, or, well, suicide drones or not. But y'all got to remember, because I think a lot of people are missing this, we're not talking about using them against civilians, because it's obviously nothing's acceptable to be used against civilians. We're talking about it being used on the actual front lines against enemy units. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into the next poll.
Right, and the next poll says, do you feel bad for the nearly destitute Russian conscripts in the footage? It looks like 47% said yes, those guys are pitiful. 26% said, not really. And 27% said no, they get what they get. Now, on this one, I have to say that even though I really despise the Russians for what they're doing, I think the Russian conscripts are as much victim of the war as the Ukrainian civilians, honestly, because they didn't choose to be there. They're being put out there like cannon fodder, and they're basically being put up for the slaughter. So they're pretty much victims of Putin, in my opinion, as well. But Enforcer, what is your perspective?
I would have to say that for the most part, it's it's really hard to answer that, honestly, because I kind of feel sorry for them in a way, but I kind of don't, because if y'all, and this is what makes it complicated, all the videos that we saw coming out from this war before the partial mobilization showed a lot of Russian citizens wandering around the streets, and whenever they were asked, do you support the war? Yes. Would you go and fight in the war? Yes, I would love to take out everything that's happened to Russia on the Ukrainians. Would you sign up right here? And then they go running off. I feel like a lot of those guys have ended up being the targets of the partial mobilization. And so for that reason, I don't really feel too sorry for them, because they were all gung-ho and ready to go until it actually came to them. And now they want to play the whole, I don't want to be here, this war isn't right. But when it didn't really affect them, they were all for it. And they were talking about, you know what, we ought to go in there and just start wiping out Ukrainian towns, leveling them to the ground, all that kind of stuff. So that, in that degree, I don't really feel too sorry for them. On the other hand, there's probably a decent amount of Russians that are neutral in the war or don't really support it, and then they ended up getting called up in the partial mobilization, and now they're fighting in a war that isn't really theirs and one that they don't really want to fight. So in that instance, it's really hard for me to say what I'm kind of what I'm leaning towards, because in one direction I don't feel sorry for some of them, in others I don't. You really would have to know the individual story of each of these prisoners to be able to say, I feel sorry for them or I don't. So with that, I'm actually undecided on that one. I'm going to have to remain on the fence. But I hope you all see kind of like the complexities of feeling sorry for them or not, because it's a lot more.
I can see that too, honestly. But generally speaking, I feel bad for the conscripts. But the ones that choose to be there, quite honestly, they deserve what they get.
Well, like none of the conscripts who wanted to, volunteered to be there. They were just called up and said they were told, okay.
Sure, I'm sure there's some conscripts that probably wouldn't mind being there. I'm sure.
Well, there's a decent point to be made there. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so that was our last poll for now. So we are, of course, moving on into our super chats. And up first, we have a $50 donation from Paulo Rocha, or Roca. Hopefully I'm saying that properly in one way. Who says, best regards to you guys from Lisbon, Portugal. Thanks for your amazing work reporting on the war.
Thank you so much for the support, and also from Portugal. I don't think we have a lot of Lee Spring Army members from Portugal, if I'm correct, Matthew.
I don't think so.
And he is from none other than Lisbon, a really neat city, and of course the capital of Portugal. So real quick, let's hop in here and let's take a look at the town of Lisbon. Let's take a look at this big park. Let's see, so... Wow, really nice. Wow, that is really nice. Look, they got like mosaics on the sidewalks.
That's interesting.
That's nuts. Like, I wonder how much that cost. Like, I bet you that cost a fortune. Goodness, that's really impressive, actually. But let's go to another street real quick that isn't a park, and let's look at a normal city street in Lisbon. Wow, is this neat? Graffiti, of course. That's, for some reason, that feels like a kind of like a Mediterranean thing in general, because graffiti is all over the place in Italy and Spain as well. And so I think that's just kind of a thing that comes with the territory of the Mediterranean is graffiti. But wow, this is a neat place. Also, I like this pattern on this wall with the tiles. Really cool. Honestly, this kind of reminds me of Rome a little bit. But a really cool place nonetheless. And also, Portugal has a really neat history. In case y'all don't know, Portugal still provides a lot of the world, a quick little rabbit hole and a fun fact about Portugal, provides a lot of the world with cork still. A lot of cork comes from Portugal. And due to some issues that they're having with these cork trees, a lot of them are starting to die. Sometimes it's because they over-harvest from the trees, because the cork comes from, I guess you could say, like this spongy interior, I guess you could say the heartwood of the cork trees. And so they're starting, a lot of cork trees in Portugal are starting to die off, but still, it's a really cool country, really cool history, and of course, I guess the most memorable part of their history, in my opinion, speaking about your country from what I know, would be in the Napoleonic Wars when Sir Arthur Wellesley's army, the Duke of Wellington, at the Battle of Waterloo, a lot of his forces, I believe there were more Portuguese soldiers at the Battle of Waterloo than there were actual British soldiers, but they were under Wellesley's command. But still, really cool country. Thank you so much for the support. And it's really cool to see that we have Lee Spring Army members all the way from Portugal. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel and helping us to keep it running. Of course, your support means a lot because with it, we are able to keep the lights on in the background and keep this channel running. Of course, one big thing, I feel like it's necessary to say this because of a super chatter last night. Do not throw in a super chat if you feel that it'll be putting yourself in a bit of a financial bind. I am totally fine with y'all just enjoying the stream and sitting back and watching it. I just thank you so much for being here. I don't want anyone to get into any kind of financial hardships because they want to support the channel. If you can't, don't. That's totally fine. We address live chats at the end of the stream anyway, so just throw in a live chat question. We can't get to all of them because there's about 20,000 chats sent in a night, but we try and get to as many of them as we can. But thank you so much to everyone who sends in support to this channel. It does help us out a lot, and without y'all, we wouldn't be able to keep the thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope I did address that comment fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $40 super chat from Clint Tevlin, who says, hi from Darwin. Do people think Russian warehouse fires are to cover up stock that has been sold off corruptly?
Great question. I believe that may be a reason why some stockpile fires happen, But at the same time, I don't think so, because once again, one thing that a lot of people don't think about is that a government and its and the economy in general, which is largely what the government exists off of, the government's only an extenuation of the economy in an organized form. The economy exists off of supplies and manpower, and in deliberately destroying supplies or manpower is detrimental to a nation. And so, while that could be the case, because, a short-sighted person could be like, oh crap, I'm about to be found out, quick, let me burn down the whole warehouse so inventory can be done. They could be doing that, but at the same time, that could be deliberate sabotage by partisans, where they're like, okay, if we burn down the supply warehouse, it has like 5% of the lithium batteries stored in all of the Russian Federation, that will make a massive impact on Russia's domestic situation. But it could go that way as well. That is a really good point, and I think something that ought to be looked into once this war starts coming to a close, because I would be interested in seeing if we can find the root cause of a lot of these storehouse fires, because a load of them have been happening across Russia, and from what we know, a lot of them are unexplained. Of course, the Russians always give an official statement that was some kind of accidental fire, but there can't be that many accidental fires across Russia on such massive warehouses like these. Those are almost of strategic importance just for the economy, the domestic side of the economy in its own right. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. And also, of course, you named out your town, Darwin, Australia. A really neat place on the very north of the country. Very rare, actually, because most people in Australia either live down here in New South Wales and Victoria, or all the way over here in Western Australia in Perth, which still, while it's a decent-sized city for Australia, it doesn't make up a lot of Australia's population. Most of it just lives right here, in between Sydney and Melbourne. But Darwin is a really neat place, and we've never looked at it on Street View. And so with that, let's drop down here and take a look at this town. And we're dropping down. Pretty neat. Oh, look at that. Oh, Matthew, that is cool.
That is pretty cool. What is that, a Nissan?
It is a... I can't really tell you specific. I think it's a Nissan. But I think
it is.
But it's like rigged up with a bush guard and everything. Like, that's what you imagine a car would look like if it was in the Outback. That's what you would imagine. And what's on the back of the thing? Like a grill or something?
It's a smoker pit.
It's a smoker. Yeah, I think it's a smoker. That is really neat. Oh, wait a minute, hang on. I gotta go somewhere else in Darwin. Let's go up here, to this large mall. Let's see what this area looks like. We're dropping down right here. Pretty neat. It's really tropical up here. Like, honestly,
3-lane roads too. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that, and they're nicely paved. Like, no cracks in them. Like, all the lines are well painted. I mean, like, goodness, like the infrastructure in Darwin is pretty impressive. And also, the buildings look pretty decent as well. I mean, it's not anything like, wow, that's just unbelievable. But it's still pretty good, nonetheless. But a really cool town. And, of course, in, I believe, the North Territory, it's right there, the Northern Territory. But still, really cool to see. And thank you so much for the support as well and helping this channel to keep running. And I hope we were able to answer that question fairly well. And I hope you enjoyed us taking a quick little look at Darwin, the city in the Northwestern Territory, Northern Territory, not the Northwestern Territory. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we did address that question fairly well, and I believe we're on to the last one of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the next bit of news.
And yes, it is time for the last one of the first segment, but I saw everybody in the live chat saying that was actually a Nissan Patrol. So very interesting. The only patrol I'm familiar with is the one in Abu Dhabi, which goes like 150 miles an hour. It's like the dragster one that was on Top Gear. Yeah, there's a picture of it right there.
What the world is that?
Now that's fake. That's got to be fake.
I feel like the person who would get out of that one would be like, "Come with me. It's too late. Get to the chopper."
That's like a rip-off like G-Wagon 6x6. I think the Australians came up with that, didn't they? The 6x6?
I think, let me hang on. The G-Wagon 6x6. Let's see.
That thing's a monstrosity, but it's so cool.
Developed for the Australian Army in 2007. Yeah, it was made by them, the Australians.
The Australians were really going to be balling in war, I gotta say.
Man, imagine you just sit there and you're in the desert in Australia. You just see these things coming up, driving by you, and you're like an enemy force. And then you just hear one guy in the back go, "Crikey, mate!" And you just get leveled leveled by an M16 from a guy riding in the back of one of these things. Honestly, I feel like anyone who fought the Australian army, and if they were using 6x6 G-Wagons, I mean, like, you would just have to respect that, because this is just exorbitant expenditures that are unbelievable, considering the base price of a G-Wagon. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And thank you everyone for clarifying what kind of model car that was that we saw in Darwin. And so with that, we are on to the last question before we get down a rabbit hole, and we're going to be moving on into the next segment of news.
All right, and I was just stalling because up next I have all the sheep noises from Duncan VR, who puts in a $30 donation and says, "Ba ba mu ba, Igor the sheep ba flew his Su-34 ba muba over the Kremlin. Meow meow. He dropped his stink bomb oink oink onto Putler's keyboard. Ba ba. Putler said, 'Holy crap! How did our air defenses miss that?' Poot ba ba."
Interesting. Thank you for the support, Duncan VR. I hate to say, if you ever throw in a question in those kinds of super chats, I don't think I ever catch on them if there is one. Is there one, Matthew?
Is there a what?
Is there an actual question in that?
Yes. Well, I think it was more of a joke. He's saying that Igor the sheep flew his Su-34 Bamuba over the Kremlin and dropped his stink bomb on Putler's keyboard. And he said, "Holy crap! How did our air defenses miss that?"
Interesting. I don't know if that's his question or not. Duncan VR in his super chats are always a little weird because it always just emphasizes on the maximum torture for Matthew, and I don't really know if there are questions in there or not, but I do thank you for the support, Duncan VR. I hope we addressed that one fairly well, and I hope you enjoyed torturing Matthew for like the 190th night in a row, I believe. It may have even been longer. And so with that, we have now reached the end of this question segment. I thank everyone for throwing in a super chat. Of course, it supports this channel a lot. But, once again, now I feel like I have to say this because of last night. If you are pressed and you feel like you cannot support this channel, please don't. One thing that I will never do is try and badger anyone to support this channel. It helps us to keep this thing running. It's the only way we keep the channel running is through super chats because we don't run ads on any of our streams. But still, at the same time, I don't want anyone to be getting in a straight supporting this channel. So if you can't, don't. I'm happy for you being here. I just love to know that people do enjoy this as a source of news every night. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns, where we can see that a Russian MLRS was having a little bit of an exciting cook-off. Yes. When I say exciting cook-off, I feel like some kind of a British aristocrat, like, it looks like the peasantry has had a cook-off. Okay, real quick, I have to mute that. But we can see the MLRS is having a little bit of trouble. Oh, look at that one. We had a little Charlie bird right there. And Matthew may know where that's from, Matthew. I bet you get that joke. But a little Charlie bird, look at that. We got another one that stuck into the ground and fired off. Oh, that one went for a flight. We see the drones move to another angle, and now white smoke is coming off. Toasted grad. Wow, that was a crazy one. That was like a balloon when you let it go in the air, Matthew. Think of how that one took off. Like, let me go back. It really was. Like, let's watch that again. It does a loop, a loop, a loop, and then it just goes in a straight line. Ivan.
It reminds me of the video of "Put it in reverse, terrorist! Put it in reverse!"
Ivan, I introduce your brand new weapon. It is self-homing BM-21 grad rocket. It only takes about 3 turns to calibrate, and then it's on its way. Oh, man. It's nice to see that Russian grad batteries are still going up in balls of flame, and it's always good to see that they're going up in spectacular balls of fire like this one right here. And so with that, that's the end of that video. And always gotta respect whenever a Russian MLRS goes up in a ball of flame. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip, where you can see that Ukrainian drones have been destroying the Russians fairly well. Also, I like the little predator thing in the top corner. Apparently it's a new Ukrainian unit symbol. And I gotta say, they got some style, they got some class, and also really artistic design right there. But anyways, here's the video. We see the Ukrainian drones traveling on their way
sheepishly looking for their targets, but let me tell you, while they are sheepish, they are definitely not handing out the soft wool. I'll guarantee you that. They are handing out the raw firepower like we saw right there.
Now, that's not the typical drone they have, is it? That it looks like it has 6 different props on it.
This thing, from what I know, is called the R18 drone, and I'll try and pull it up real quick and see if I'm correct. Yes, it is the R18 drone. These things have 8 blades, and apparently they can carry a pretty sizable bomblet like that one right there. So for larger ordnance, it is kind of the average one, but usually we see them using stuff that's quite smaller, like DJI Mavics. These are, I guess you could say, they're heavy artillery in terms of drone firepower. Like right there. That's pretty heavy firepower. Have you ever wanted to have the heavy lifting power of a smaller drone, but the dropping capacity of an albatross bird that's just taken a fat crap on your car and left a giant white stain on the hood? Well, then you ought to get yourself the R18. The brand new R18 has enough firepower to blow up a Russian tank and also get the BMP right alongside it. Make sure to get yours while supplies last. I don't know if that was a good Sam Elliott. Hopefully it was. You know, people seem to like that one, but I feel like that one's very sketch. Its quality can just change from night to night. But with that, we're now moving on to the next clip where we see the Ukrainian drone dropped even more bomblets onto the Russians. Also, we have to mute this. But if I did have this unmuted, it would sound like music in the NFL draft. We can now see the Russians walking down the road. Bomblet hits. And it looks like one of them is now taking a lie down while the other one is walking it off. Literally walking it off.
Literally.
The other guy is pulling one of those Peter Griffin things where you hold your leg and go, ah, ah. So, with that, that's the end of the video, and by and large, a pretty effective drone bomblet drop. Of course, the Ukrainians have gotten pretty effective with these things, and usually we can see that they have calculated the windage in their heads before they even drop these bomblets, like that one right there. Once again, huge credit to the Ukrainian drone operators. With that, we're now moving on to the next clip where we can see a very lucky man. This is a Ukrainian soldier, and over the past 2 days, his rifle has been hit by a bullet on each day. And you can actually see the holes in the rifle from that. So let me put this in high definition.
Дружаня, ты счастливчик.
You can see the hole right there in the grip from one of the bullets. It passed right through it and took a chunk of plastic with it.
Две пули в автомат. Одна пуля в первый день, вторая пуля.
And we can see another one went right below the barrel through the handguard. That is a lucky man right there. Very, very lucky. That was very close to him. Those things just passed inches in front of him, and somehow he didn't get wounded through both of them. He needs to go get himself some lottery tickets. We will get him an airplane ticket to Georgia to get him some lottery tickets. Because this
I was about to say, Alabama definitely doesn't have the lottery.
Yeah, the governor's coming to my house right now to even making such a statement. But still, it's great to see that the Ukrainian soldier made it through without getting wounded at all. And if this man could make it to Georgia here in the United States, I would get him some Powerball tickets, because with that kind of luck, the only thing he can do is win from here. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip. And once again, very harrowing to actually think that bullets flew that close to that fella. And with that, we can see that the Ukrainians have decided to do a little bit of demolition work in the war. The Russians were inside this building, but of course that doesn't stop the Ukrainians' version of OSHA, or a similar bureau in the United States government, to deem that this building is condemned and unworthy to be inhabited. And unfortunately, it appears that the Russians didn't get the eviction notice or the notice of condemnation, and so they were inside of it when the Ukrainians took it down. But here's the video. Well, you can see the building smoking, of course, due to its derelict state before the Ukrainians, of course, decided to demolish it, and now they've taken the whole building down a floor. This property is no longer listed on Airbnb. Well, that's the end of the video, but it's nice to know that the Ukrainians, in all seriousness, did get another group of Russians, and it looks like, from the shot, they literally brought the roof down on them. Let's watch that one more time. Yeah, that was a roof. They brought the roof down on them. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip and on into the next one. But once again, nice to see that the Ukrainians are always making sure to take care of the condemned buildings. And with that, we're now going to be taking a quick look, and of course, a nice little reflective introspection at what the Russians have gotten for this war. Well, they've lost 70,000 troops dead. We don't know how many wounded. They've lost 2,640 tanks, another 9 lost today. 5,378 armored personnel carriers, another 14 today. 1,698 artillery pieces, another 8 of those today. No new MLRSs, but they've already lost 379 of them. 192 anti-aircraft warfare systems, 272 planes, 251 helicopters, 1 new plane shot down today, and 2 more helicopters destroyed. No new boats, but remember, they kind of already took care of the boats the best they could. They got a landing craft and the Moskva, which were both some pretty high-value targets as far as the quality of the Black Sea Fleet goes. They got 3 new drones today, bringing that number over 1,400. They've destroyed 151 special equipment vehicles, another one destroyed today. It looks like they won't be doing anything special with their equipment anymore. Another 10 supply trucks destroyed today, bringing that number up to 4,088, and unfortunately no new cruise missiles, although I don't think any of them have been fired as of today. But one thing that we can tell from these numbers is that the Russians are not having a great time with this war. One thing, of course, that really sticks out to me is the massive 69,700 soldiers killed. That is about as high as a war. Wars in the 21st century by losses. 8 deadliest wars in the 21st century. So the Second Congo War. Let's see real quick. Are we going to get a number? Let's see here. This was 1998 to 2003. Let's see. It doesn't... So they're not going to give us numbers? Well, what a... Okay. That was just silly. Anyways, we're going to move on to this one. Wars and casualties of the 20th and 21st centuries. So for some reason we start off in the U.S. Civil War, which is in the 19th century. So let's skip forward to the modern day in the 21st century. So starting off with the Ethiopia-Eritrea War, 80,000 killed in the war on both sides. The Russians are about to make their way just 10,000 below the Ethiopia-Eritrea War. They beat out the NATO versus Serbia War. They have not gotten close to NATO versus Afghanistan, but that, of course, includes probably all of the civilians that were killed in Taliban attacks on civilian populations, for example, in Kabul, which wasn't really covered a lot, but it happened often. Nigeria versus Boko Haram, 350,000, so they're not really getting towards that direction soon. Côte d'Ivoire Civil War, they did beat out Côte d'Ivoire by a decent amount. We can see that the Second Iraq War, which I guess you could say would be the 2003 invasion, they're not getting all too close to that, but I believe that's counting some of the civilian deaths that occurred after, I guess you could say, the initial invasion's end and the U.S. occupation had occurred for several years after. It looks like out of all of these, and we're going to skip the ones where the Russians don't qualify, they beat out Thailand versus the Muslim separatists by a large margin, almost by, I guess you could say, around 600 to 700%. Let's see, Pakistan versus Islamists, 50,000. So they beat out that war that occurred in 2007. It seems like a separatist war by about 20,000 killed. It looks like Iraqi civil war after withdrawal of the USA. They haven't really gotten there. They've actually, according to this, Ukraine's civil... Why are they called Ukraine's civil war? It's not a civil war. But anyways, we can see that, of course, from 2014 to 2022, they haven't really gotten even close to getting to that number that they had over nearly 8 years. We can see that they, of course, beat out Cameroon versus Islamists. I guess you could call that Cameroon versus ISIS. Mozambique versus the Islamists. Myanmar, the Myanmar army versus the Rohingyas, I believe. And then it looks like we don't have any casualty reports for Ethiopia versus Tigray. That's an interesting name. But still, we can see that this war is getting on up there in terms of casualties, especially for a first world country entering a war against what is usually called a lesser power, like a regional power or less. And considering that the Russians went into this war and everyone in the world viewed them as a world superpower, and now at this point they aren't even viewed as a regional power, it's showing you how badly it's gone for them. And also based on these casualty statistics off of all the wars that have occurred in the 21st century, this may end up being one of the highest casualty wars just for the Russians alone out of the entirety of the 21st century. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the casualty report and on into our last bits of location unknown news, where we can see that Ukrainians lit up a Russian position. This one was interesting because it's almost like they spotted it just in an instant and just all started firing on it. All of these are BTRs of a certain kind, and they took out the position rather quickly. We can see the Ukrainian APCs lighting up what appears to be a Russian bunker or Russian positions inside of this tree line, and we can see that they're firing as they advance, just lighting up the whole entire tree line. I mean, this one's really scooting. It's just moving right past the supposed position, and they're still continuing to fire in the tree line. When you see that they're lighting up almost all of the tree lines. They're continuing to light the thing up. Smoke. They fired at this tree line so much that smoke is starting to rise straight out of it. I mean, they've almost turned this tree line into vapor at this point. It's insane to see, but it's good to know that the Ukrainians never take any chances, and they will level what is assumed to be a Russian position. We couldn't see any Russian forces in this video, most likely because they're obscured by the tree line, but still it's good to know that the Ukrainians will lay down the fire whenever they need to. With that, we're moving on to our final bit of Location Unknown news, and this video is just raw sound. We're about to hear a Ukrainian T-80. The Ukrainians did have some of these before the war. Cold starting. Now, one thing that a lot of people love to hear, and Matthew is one of these people, is the sound of car or motorcycle engines and exhausts when they turn on. Matthew loves the sound of a good car.
Yes.
Now, I'm about to show you a video, Matthew, that will probably get you going, and a lot of people in the live chat, because this is the sound of a T-80 cold starting. So this is what the engine sounds like when it's raring to go. So here's the video.
Yeah, boy.
This is Delta 429, permission to taxi to runway 22 right.
We're now taking off from Atlanta Airport and flying.
That is so loud.
Yeah. So
sounds like a CSX like freight locomotive starting up.
I got to be honest with you, man. This thing sounds like an Airbus A330. It sounds massive.
A little bit.
But we're gonna let the video continue and let y'all hear the rest of the exhaust sound because it's just nice.
The enemy will never hear that coming.
Oh man, when the T-80's around, people aren't looking at the ground for tanks. I think they're looking up in the sky for planes flying overhead, because that thing is a jet. Of course, it uses a turbine engine, so it sounds a lot like a jet engine. It works off of nearly the same principle, but still, the sound from that thing, you can't mistake the sound of a turbine engine, and that was a cool little, I guess you could say, look into the startup of a T-80 and how that thing sounds. It's monstrous. And of course, a real quick side note, if y'all are wondering what my favorite engine to hear is, it's the engine of a larger freight train, like a General Electric AC 4400. I know that gets a little bit nerdy and technical there, but those things, when they pass by, you can feel it and you can hear it, because those trains just go, and they're just shaking the whole ground. It's really cool. You know, you don't get to see them a lot, but still really neat nonetheless. But this is definitely an engine to go down in the books. The sound of that thing was just raw. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the location unknowns, and from that really cool little video, and we're now going to be moving all the way down the line and into the Bakhmut area, starting off with a clip of a Ukrainian kamikaze drone in action. But before we show you all this video and show them absolutely getting the Russians, we're going to take a quick pause, because I've seen that Matthew has thrown up an interesting poll a little while ago. And so with that, what's the poll?
Enforcer, I haven't put up a poll since the last segment.
Are you kidding me? Are you?
No.
Take him out. Take him out of here. But sorry, for some reason that's weird. I remember you throwing up a poll and ending it like 30 minutes ago. But anyways, since we don't have a poll to cover, well, how are y'all doing down there? And so,
you want to move on to some questions?
Yeah, let's move on into some questions real quick.
All right, and also, folks, just to let you know why there haven't been any polls, that's because I'm trying to fix the Nightbot weather. I had an idea in my head of how to fix it, but it's not going as well as I thought it would go. So maybe I can get it fixed before the stream's out tonight, so we can get our weather command back, because I really missed having that. But anyways, on to our first super chat. We have a $70 donation from Mark, Slav Ukraine, the channel legend, who says, "Have a good night, LSA. Keep on cranking out the impressions. That's an order."
And thank you so much for the support, Mark. Mark, you've helped this channel to keep on running for quite a while, and I've got to thank you so much once again for throwing in some support and helping us to keep this thing running, and also throwing in some kind words. Now, impressions are something that we try and do in a lot of moderation. Of course, some people love them, some people are indifferent about them, but that's a very small amount, and then some people hate them. And it seems like it's a kind of smaller amount that hate the impressions, but still they're a very vocal group, so we try and keep them down to a minimum the best we can. But I do thank you so much for enjoying them, because I like doing them. It breaks up the monotony sometimes of some of the things that we do and cover, because, you know, I have to be honest, some of these videos do kind of get similar. Like watching a BMP-3 get destroyed for like the 80th time, it does seem a little bit interesting to throw in something to make it seem a little bit more interesting than just seeing the Ukrainians blitzing the Russians again, because believe it or not, that's now become the norm. But thank you so much once again for the support, Mark. It helps out this channel massively, and without viewers like you, it wouldn't be possible to keep this stream running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we did address that comment fairly well, and we're going to keep up the voices for as long as we can. And that wasn't even a good Mike Tyson. I haven't done Mike Tyson in so long, that wasn't even a good one. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again, Mark, for helping this channel to keep rolling.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jose Diaz, who says, "Greetings from Arecibo, Puerto Rico, at Enforcer and Enforcer Matt and the LSA. Proud of the outstanding work supporting our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. Gloria a Ukraina."
And thank you so much for the support, Jose. You've been around forever, and I think you are the Lee Spring Army ambassador to Puerto Rico at this point. In fact, we are going to create Jose Diaz. What shall we call him? Commander of the armies of the Caribbean. Yes, I think that's a good one. What do you think, Matthew?
I like that.
That's a pretty good one. So from now on, everyone, Jose Diaz, because titles are fun, we're going to create Jose Diaz as the commander of the armies of the Caribbean. I think that's a really cool name. I don't know about y'all. But thank you so much once again for the support, Jose Diaz. It helps this channel to keep on running. And it's great to hear that you're still here and that you're enjoying the news. I love to know that people do like this news. I would hate to know that people didn't like it, you know, because who wouldn't want their news coverage to be not liked? So thank you so much once again for the support.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I feel like it's basic knowledge. But thank you so much once again, Jose, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running. Because without viewers like you, it wouldn't be possible, and you've supported us a whole load and helped this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from the B-Night3, who says, please Reddit search Vasyl, that's V-A-S-Y-L, the Cane Corso war dog breed with a paw amputated. The story of how he lost his paw is worth mentioning, in my opinion. Share the story, please. This is my 4th time asking, to be honest, shaking my head.
Well, I thank you for the support. I think you're talking about this dog right here. Let's see, Vasyl the dog served in Marine Corps reconnaissance platoon. Recently, Vasyl got tangled in wire in front of the Russian trenches. There was no way to save him. Rescuers would definitely get shot. In a day, Vasyl came back. He chewed off his own paw. Aw, that's sad. But what an impressive dog. I think we addressed this one last night, and we pulled up a picture of a German Shepherd. But what an interesting story, and of course, dogs are the greatest thing on earth, and this one is, you know, it's kind of sad that it chewed off its own leg, but still, it's a good dog. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, I believe we just rounded out this question segment, didn't we, Matthew?
And I believe we did. And also, I'm going to ask this for the first time ever. I'm at a total loss for why the Nightbot will not do the weather command. If anybody has any suggestions, please put it in the live chat. I am super desperate at this point because I've tried everything that I know and I have no clue why it's working. So please let me know if you have like a suggestion.
And so with that, while we see if Matthew can get any troubleshooting advice from Windows Tech Support in the live chat, we're now going to be moving on into the next segment of news, and actually the final segment of the night, which will include everything that we have not covered so far, starting off in Bakhmut, where we saw a Ukrainian kamikaze drone in action. And so here's the video. This one seems to be a little bit more improvised than normal. We can hear the techno dubstep playing in the background. I don't know what kind of genre of music that is. I'm just throwing that out there. But we see that they've written a little inscription on it. Of course, those are very important. This is the best way that Ukrainians have been able to deliver messages to the Russians beyond Tinder, because we know that the Russians use Tinder in the war. We now see them taking the drone to the skies, taking a good look at the dawn that's rising right in front of them. And the ground below them, which looks a little grainy. See a little bit of static overtaking the screen, but it looks like they may have found a target, because this thing is starting to go pretty low and right into the tree line, and it looks like it may have rammed directly into a Russian vehicle right there, but we can't really tell. But with that, that's the end of the video, and a really interesting look at the Ukrainians using improvised drones to hit Russian targets. We don't know if it was successful or not. We couldn't really see the ending there, but a pretty neat thing to see nonetheless. Moving on into Bakhmut, we did see that Ukrainian soldiers behind the lines and in the town itself are keeping the spirits high of the children that were not able to leave the town. Of course, kids, sadly enough, sometimes do get stuck on the front lines along with their families because they were not able to leave. And so we can see here that the Ukrainian soldiers are trying to cheer up these kids and the families as best they can by bringing them a little bit of candy so that way they can have something enjoyable to have, as I guess you could say, a little treat. And so here's the video. See them getting out a little bag of candy
Чекай, мене ще солодощі ще є, тримайте.
And handing it to these kids.
Да. Що? Ну тільки обережно.
Тільки скажіть, що ми поїхали, оплатіть.
See them pulling out some more candy. They're stacking these kids up.
Будь ласка. Все, ви ховайтесь, тут не сидіть.
We now see them hopping in their car and driving off after a nice little deed. If they were Boy Scouts, I think that's their good deed of the day, and it's very nice to see that while those kids unfortunately are stuck on the front lines, most likely because their family wasn't able to get out of there and there's now no way to safely get out of there, it's good to know that the Ukrainian armed forces will, on top of trying to defend the entire nation from being taken over by the Russian Federation, they will also try and make sure to cheer up the kids the best they can. And so with that, huge kudos to these soldiers for going out of their way to do such a kind thing. And with that, we're now going to be moving on towards the front lines again, where we can see that the Ukrainians are keeping traditions alive. Someone actually pointed this out before we watched this video, that the gun I'm about to show is a DP-27, which really, it could be a DP-27 or a DP-28. From what we can tell, they're pretty much the same thing. There's just a tiny variation in between the DP-27, which was the pre-production version, and the DP-28, which was the production version. Unfortunately, I don't know the exact variation off the top of my head, but we are about to see the Ukrainians using one of these things on the front, probably just like their grandfather did a long time ago. We see the DP-28 right there. He's now getting on it. And now he's firing it. Now, interestingly enough, man, I don't know if anyone knows this or not, but much like let me think, the Lewis gun, I was about to say Tommy gun, which would have been entirely wrong. Much like a Lewis gun, which I'll show you right here, which has a massive dish-like, I guess you could say, drum barrel magazine, whatever you'd like to call it, on top of the machine gun. The DP-27 also has a very similar, I guess you could say, magazine on top of it. And what's really cool about it is that as it fires, that magazine will spin. And you can actually see that in this clip because there's this little toggle on the front of the magazine right there, right where the mouse is. And you'll see him fire, and that thing will slowly start moving to the right side of the screen. We now see him getting off the gun, taking a rest. And with that, that's the end of the video, but it's really cool to see that the Ukrainians are using some of the older guns. Of course, some guns don't really stand to the test of time. For example, the Maxim, while usable, is not that effective due to its weight and how cumbersome it is to transport, but a gun like the DP-28 or the DP-27, which is a light machine gun, surprisingly enough, they do stand the test of time quite well. The ammunition is still easy to find. I believe it's 7.62 by 54R, if I'm correct, which we can go and find. Let me see, where is the ammo? Yeah, it's 7.62 by 54R. Very easy to find all over the place. You can find millions of those rounds, especially in Ukraine. So it's easy to find the ammunition to use it. It's a simple machine gun. It's a light machine gun, so it's easy to transport. An infantryman can carry it. So it stands the test of time quite well. It could probably compare quite decently to some modern guns like the RPK, although in ergonomics it may not be as great as the RPK, but it can do about the same job. And so with that, that's the end of that little video, and really interesting to see that the Ukrainians have whipped out some of the vintages to help keep the front lines going. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the Bakhmut area and further down the line towards Luhansk, where we saw that another one bit the dust. Another Russian tank bit the dust, right near some kind of a silo of a sort. When you see it sitting down there, and all of a sudden, the bomblet's on its way, slamming right into the engine bay, right behind the turret. And we don't see any smoke, so we don't know if it was damaged significantly or not. I would have to say it's probably lightly damaged, but it's still nice to see the Ukrainians do pepper a Russian tank here and there, just to make sure that the crew doesn't get any sleep if they were sleeping on the job. And so with that, that's the end of that little video, and once again, to recap this area of the front line, we have heard the Ukrainian forces are currently pushing the Russians back a little by little in this area. We don't have any frontline updates to make at the moment, but we will be hoping to have this frontline change soon, showing that the Ukrainians have pushed the Russians out of the area of Bakhmut. Moving on down further on the front line to the area of Donetsk, we saw that for some Russians, life sucks. In fact, that's a little bit of an understatement. For all Russians, life sucks, but for these guys, it sucks a lot. So here's the video of these Russian soldiers not having the best of times. Or as your English teacher will say in every single high school, it was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. If you came through like Common Core in the United States, you will understand. But anyways, here's the video.
Вот, приехал третий полк
3-й батальон с Пензы. Сначала мы жили вот в таких
So it looks like they're living in a pigsty, which they would have made anyways.
Пришлось переехать. И то, прежде чем пошел дождик, был коровник раньше здесь. Сейчас заехали вот в другой коровник. Все, блядь, уже заболели, все мокрые.
We now see them walking through what appears to be just an entire farm shed.
Вот я хуй, типа, блядь, загон или что тут.
We see them hanging out in a more intact part of the pigsty.
Тут вон тоже, ребята, все тут намастерили, блядь. Ни окон, ни дверей, блядь. Все, блядь, открыто. Мокро. Тут вот спим мы, блядь. Солому кинули на бетон. Люди, вон некоторые, блядь, в проходах спят.
You know, it's something very bizarre with how Russians almost go out of their way to pick pig farms to hang out in. You know, it's kind of weird, isn't it, Matthew?
It's probably for a reason.
I know, it's gotta be. I mean, like, it's so weird. We've seen more videos of Russians hanging out in pig farms than anywhere else. Like, I've never seen them hanging out in normal houses in their own films. It's always pig pens and pig farms. And with that, that's the end of the video, and I just had an epiphany here. The United States has been dealing with a feral hog invasion for quite some while now, and we've been trying to quell that because hogs in the United States are invasive and they're also very vicious creatures. I believe the Ukrainians may be dealing with a feral hog invasion of their own, because we can see that they generally root or roost inside of pig farms. Very interesting coincidence right there, and I think we'll have to keep an eye on that. But with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Donetsk area, and further down the lines, we have not, before I move on, we have not gotten any frontline news from Donetsk nor the southern front. The front lines are completely unchanged in this area, and for a decently long while, we believe that will be the case. However, in Mariupol, we have finally gotten some news of the conditions of the civilians that have been under Russian occupation for quite some while, and it appears that the conditions have gotten worse. Starting off with this first video, we can see that there is an unbelievably long queue at a bread line in Mariupol, considering that most of the city's infrastructure has been destroyed and the Russians are hardly supplying the city at all, and so food and resources are quite scarce. When you see here that the bread line is so large and so long that it'll most likely take the entire day standing in that bread line to get any kind of food whatsoever. And from what we know, the situation across all of Mariupol is much like this. It's pitiful to see, it's sick to think that the Russians occupy these places, claim they've liberated them and made these people's lives better, and then we see what they're really living like, and it's nothing at all what you would think a good life would be. Moving on to the outskirts of town, we can even see that those mass graves that we saw months ago appear to have maybe gotten larger. It appears that even more civilians that were killed had been found, because one thing you may notice is that in this video, it appears that the trees are starting to die off in the background, so we do know that this is sometime recently, and also all of these grave markers are fresh. None of these pieces of wood that make up these markers have been here for quite long. All of them are just brand new. And so it appears that the Russians have been continuously finding new dead bodies inside of Mariupol, or the citizenry have, and they're now taking them to the outskirts of the city and burying them in massive plots. And so here's the video showing you the extent of the mass graves that have now been created brand new again in Mariupol, adding to about the 14,000 graves that were already there.
Вот, здравствуйте, смотрите, как в Мариуполе на кладбище людей хоронят. Вот. Человек. Вот, человек, все. И вот так вот очень много могил неизвестных людей. Мариуполь. Вот они. Куча.
And with that, that's the end of the video, but it stretches on in every direction you can see. It stretches on all the way up the hill. It stretches on all the way down the hill, as you can see at the start of this video. It goes almost all the way into the valley in between the two hills. This grave site is massive. It stretches on forever, and we can see that the numbering on these marked graves here, these unmarked graves, 2,851. That is grave marker 2,851 in this brand new burial plot. That's how many brand new Ukrainian civilians, well, not brand new, that's how many dead Ukrainian civilians have been found that have been buried in this new mass grave. And it just puts into perspective, adding that to around the 14,000 dead civilians that we already know of from Mariupol that have been seen in satellite imagery in these mass graves, and also seen right near the end of the siege of Mariupol on day 89 or day 90, we know that this is getting on up towards 16 to 20,000 civilians killed in a single city alone. And to think of that kind of those kinds of criminal acts being committed by the Russians these days, no other acts and atrocities can even compare. Bucha, Hostomel, and Irpin cannot compare. The mass graves found outside of Izium cannot compare. Any of the mass graves and atrocities that the Ukrainians have already found pales in comparison to the one that they'll find when they reach Mariupol. And it's sad, it's sickening to think that the Russians keep getting away with this stuff. They're still doing it to this day. They're not doing it on an industrial scale like they did during the siege of Mariupol, but they are doing it all the time to Ukrainian civilians. There was 400 dead people found outside of Izium, and the Russians were there for 6 months. They killed almost 20,000 in Mariupol, and they fought that battle for nearly 2.5 to 3 months. That gives you an idea of the kind of atrocities that the Russians are committing. They do this stuff deliberately to civilians. They target them outright. Whenever they lose, they decide to take it out on the civilians. And it's sickening to think that these kinds of graves exist in this size outside of Mariupol. And I think that for that reason, the Russians should pay dearly for everything that they've done to Ukraine. Because they've threatened... And remember, they have actually done this to Ukraine. They have threatened to do it to people like you and me. And I don't think some people get that sometimes. I don't really get that a lot of times either. But when you really think about it, if the Russians were fighting a war against one of our nations and somehow was able to push into it for like Poland or Germany or Britain or America, they would do the exact same kind of things to your own mothers and fathers, your own children, your wives, anything that you hold dear that's a part of your family. They would do the exact same thing to. And to think that they would threaten that and think that that makes them look macho and they can get away with it, we ought to teach them otherwise. And so with that, that's the end of this video. And once again, it's absolutely outrageous to see that the Russians are once again just piling up evidence of these atrocities right outside of Mariupol. With that, we're now going to be moving on to Tokmak, where I have seen something that did bring a smile to my face. One would be amiss to not say that there is a misguided person here and there in Ukraine. Some people that were pro-Russian and wanted to see the Russian forces march through their area. And we can see in the Tokmak area, one of these pro-Russians got a taste of their own medicine after the Kadyrovites went into their house and stole their stuff right in front of their faces. And of course, it always sounds a little amiss to go, haha, that's, it looks like you got it, just deal with it. But still, considering that this person is a pro-Russian, one of these people here, it's hilarious to see that they went and looted their house. So with that, here's the video.
Кто у меня вскрыл? Это проникновение со взломом.
Смотри, дверь была
И вещи уже наготовлены. У меня что, кто-то заселился?
Нет, вот это было.
Ой.
Ребята чисто...
Простите.
Ребята чисто стояли около...
Добрый день. Около гаражей?
Да,
стояли?
то есть, в дом никто ничего.
А кто вытащил мотоциклы? Кто дом вскрыл?
Сказали, тут никто не живет. Тут кто есть...
Где ваш командир? Я хочу с ним поговорить.
Он уже был, мы с ним уже
Я хочу лично поговорить с вашим командиром.
Наш командир находится в Чеченской республике, Рамзан Кадыров.
Я знаю.
I like how they put a picture, I'm guessing, of the woman who had all of her stuff stolen and also Kadyrov in the bottom. Like, it's kind of weird, but anyways, we're going to let the video continue.
На данный момент.
Разговаривать со мной. Слушаю вас.
Дядь! У меня не для этого отец погибал на войне в 16 году, чтобы вот так вскрывали, сука, дом!
Смотри, это не мой же? Не мой? Скажите честно, тут везде это до нас было так. Так это мы, это мы. Это было...
А это что? Это что? А это кто, блядь, вообще?
Это наш.
В смысле? А кто вас пустил в это? Вы же не заходили в дом.
We have to mute that right there. But I still gotta say, oh, isn't that unfortunate? The guys you wanted there, look, they just stole your stuff. How does that feel? I bet that doesn't feel great anymore. You know, like, you wish for them to be there. You're sitting there chatting, love it or see it, and all that crap. And then they finally get there and they steal everything out of your house. I wonder how that really feels, you know, because that's like, you know, man, that's like a person in World War II going, oh, you know, great, the Germans are coming. You know, they're going to liberate this place. It's going to be a lot better. And then once they get there, they go, oh, look, you're going to the camps. Like, that's almost the same thing that they did to this woman here. And it's crazy to see that what you wish for isn't always what you want. And this woman figured that out right then and there. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that bit of news in Tokmak and on up to Dnipro, where we had some incredible news. We covered this a while ago, and in case if you don't remember, or in case if y'all don't remember, because it was a while ago, it really was, we covered that the Germans had sent a Gepard, several Gepards, I believe it was about a dozen of them, into Ukraine. And is it just me, Matthew, or do these things look cool?
They do look pretty cool. The two guns are a pretty cool looking feature, too.
They are. And guess what these guns can do?
What? Shoot?
Shred a Shahed mid-flight. And we found what can shoot down the Shaheds. It's a Gepard. And so here's the video. It's very hard to see because, of course, it's all happening in the night sky. But we can see a Gepard, and we can hear it shooting down Shaheds in the distance. And so here's the video. When you see the Gepard firing in the distance towards the Shahed. Just listen to that noise.
Это у меня с балкона, блядь.
Also, what you're seeing right here are these bright flashes in the sky where those rounds were flying. Those are, I guess you could say, fuses. Once these rounds fly a certain distance, they automatically explode. I believe they also explode in proximity to objects. So, keep that in mind. But real nice to see. We found the deterrent for the Shads. It's Gepards. We just got to go back to like 1960s, 1970s-esque technology, this thing here, and that can get the job done. And that's actually pretty cool to think of, that old technology is the answer in this scenario. And it's good to know that the Gepards will find their place in Ukrainian air defense, protecting civilians from Shahed attacks in their home cities. And so with that, that's the end of that little clip right there, and it's great to know that German support has meant so much to the Ukrainians. While it's been few, it has been quality. They've given the Ukrainians Iris-Ts, they've given them Gepards, they've given them Panzerhaubitze 2000s, they've given them a load of stuff that has really turned out to be quite beneficial in this war, and it seems that the Gepard has now found its place amongst the stars as being one of Ukraine's top-notch air defense systems, especially when it comes to shooting down Shaheds. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and we're now going to be moving out of Dnipro and to our front lines in Kherson to cover the remainder of the news there. And before we begin covering the frontline news, we got to start off with the best. We got a video today showing the conditions of all three crossings: the Antonovsky Bridge, the Antonovsky Pontoon Bridge, and the Antonovsky Ferry, all in one video. And so here's the clip showing the conditions of all three. When you see some kind of Russian military police walking to the edge of this pontoon bridge, we can see that these spans are hardly on the bridge, so that's not crossable. You can see the Russians just taking a good look at it. When you see that the pontoon is largely gone, has practically been destroyed at this point. We see him still showing the damage to both the pontoon bridge and the Antonovsky bridge. And then we can see the ferry. And we all know what happened to the ferry last time, but it looks like they still have an operational one in a way. And also, look at that. Thank you to the random Russian cameraman who did this. We got the exact location where that ferry lands right here in this video. Isn't that nice, Matthew? Let's give a huge thanks to the cameraman. Because from what we can see, right here. That's where it is. So we go back to this. Red house, little red pier. Red house, little red pier. Red house, little red pier. Yep, that's it. That's the little road, the dirt road, that they've been moving all of the traffic down to get onto that ferry and then cross over to the other side. Let's see if there's a landing. This looks like it would be the landing spot right here for the ferry on the other side. Or it could go over here, just depending on which one. But still, hey, that's great. Thank you to the random Russian cameraman who just gave us invaluable information about where exactly that ferry lands and drops off its stuff. And also, let's thank the Russian cameraman for showing us that there's really no way that the Russians could supply any kind of meaningful force now, because the ferry is the only thing that can transport stuff across. So with that, huge thanks to the MP, who's now checking over his notebook on how to F up in the best way possible, and it looks like he's checked the box right there. He's really messed up for the Russians, but he's really given us a lot of help. And that's the end of the video, and I gotta say, I got a warm feeling about this one, guys. I feel like this is a video that will be put down in the history books, and I feel like the Ukrainian armed forces are looking over it for its quality. It had great cinematography in it. I was trying to come up with a word there. And I think they'll have to look over this to make sure that they, too, can film videos as good as this one. Hopefully not in the same category. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip, and we're now going to be moving to the front line, where things have gotten worse for the Russians. Oh, they've gotten a lot worse. Starting off with some Ukrainians storming a Russian position. When you see them tossing a grenade down into the little Russian dugout, and then pop, and they got it. When you hear a little bit of fire coming their way as the bullets just flew right over them. When you now see them firing into the dugout, and I don't think whatever's in that dugout's making it out. With that, that's the end of that video, and things are looking quite bad for the Russians out there. They're literally getting shot at like fish in a barrel. Moving even further on down the front lines, we saw some, you know what, I should have made this the title for tonight's stream. Y'all remember that I said that the best tank that the Russians have is the T-14 Armata on paper? Because there's only a couple of these things and none of them have made it past the prototype phase. Y'all remember that? So, in reality, while this thing is the best Russian tank out there, it's not really the best Russian tank out there. The best one they have is the T-90M. And there's only about 30 of these things. We've seen 2 of them get destroyed and 1 of them get captured so far. So 10% of all of Russia's T-90Ms have already been destroyed as of today. And we can see a picture of one right here. We can also see a picture of the front of one in a military parade in Moscow. Well, what if I told y'all that today another one was destroyed? Here's the video of another T-90M being blown away before it could even fire a shot. And let's just make sure, right here, let me mute that. You can see the very distinct shape of the turret. You can also see a picture of it up here for reference. That is another T-90M. One of Russia's finest tanks. They've already lost 10% of these tanks, and they're about to lose another 3% of them right here in this clip. This one tank accounts for 3% of the T-90M force of Russia. And, wait for it, it's right there. It's still, boom goes the dynamite, the thing goes up in a ball of flames, and another T-90M is gone. Pulled orc, anyone? It looks smoked.
Pork. With a pork, with emphasis on the last letter.
They're really putting well, I'm not going that was a Rice Krispies joke. That doesn't even make any sense on this one, but still, it's cooking. And let's see if we can get a zoom in video. We can't, but we can see that those remains are fairly charred. I don't know about y'all, and that looks like a T90M that will never make it to see the light of day again. That one's gone, and it will always be gone. And so another one of these things will not be making it to the Victory Day Parade next year. If we looked at the Victory Day Parade, I believe like 20 of these things were used in last year's Victory Day Parade, and they've lost 4 of them. So that means if they use 20 next year, there's only going to be 3 more of them elsewhere in the country. Rather than that, almost the entirety of the T90M force would be in Moscow at the same time. That's really funny in a way. I like to think about it like that. That makes me feel all warm and fuzzy to know that the Russians will be suffering for equipment later on. Moving on down the front lines and towards the area of Liebenetz, we also saw that a Bulat, a T-64BM2 Bulat, was firing at the Russians. And I really like that name, Bulat. It just sounds cool. But here's the video of them firing, and there's no music at all. See it firing again. See it firing again while it was even moving, which was pretty interesting to see. And with that, that's the end of the video. Matthew, I got a question for you. Do you know why the T-64BM2 is called a Bulat?
Not really.
Well, it's because when Russian forces are looking through their binoculars and looking into the distance for tanks and they see one of these things, they go, hey, is that a Bulat? And then they get hit by the shell and it makes a Bulat noise, and that's it. And that's why it's called a Bulat.
That's not really why it's called that.
No, it's not. It's not. I could probably pull up the real name, so we will, just to see. T-64BM2 Bulat. I love that. I don't know why. It's really cool. So let's see here. The Bulat. So let's see. Very taking the routes. But what about the Bulat? The Ukrainian fire control. Okay, but what about the Bulat? This tank represented itself as a modernized version of the BM. After studies of modernization in the early 2000s, work started at the Kharkiv Mileshiv Factory Design Bureau by a first batch of 10 T-64B tanks converted to the BM Bulat standard in 2010. These were followed by 19 in 2011 and others in 2012 for a total of 76. The range of modifications included the Knife. Wow, that's a cool name for a reactive armor package, the Knife. And the Warta, which is pronounced in Ukrainian, I believe, Vorta, active defense system. Composite armor is fitted to the turret, and it doesn't look like they actually give us a reason why it's named Bulat. Let's go and see if we can find what does Bulat mean.
Does it translate to something?
What does Bulat mean? Wait, what if it... Wait, hang on.
It means bullet?
Wait, yeah. Ukraine word for bullet. Kulia. It's not a bullet. We were way off. Dang it. Does anyone know what it means?
Punch in Google Translate and put it in there.
Yeah, Google Translate. So, let's see here.
Should auto detect.
Oh yeah, it should. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Let's see. So, hello. So we want to put this in Russian.
There it was at the top.
Rossiyski. There we go. So, hello. Is it me you're looking for? Bullet. Pulya. And then we put it in Ukrainian to double check it there. Kulia. So it's not bullet. According to Google Translate, it's not bullet.
Punch in the word into the left side and then let it translate to Ukrainian, I think.
Let's see.
Or the other way around, actually.
Bulat. It's just Bulat. I mean, I don't think that one will work, but Bulat in Ukrainian. I gotta know. I mean, now that I made that joke, I really gotta know seriously, what does that mean? And I don't think we're gonna find it. It doesn't explain anywhere what that means. Hang on. I gotta find this out. You gotta be kidding me. It doesn't say. It really does not say. So with that, we're not going to drag this on for much longer. Sadly, we cannot find the answer for what balot really means. But if anyone knows, please share it with us. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that video of that balot. And we're now going to be moving further down the line to our last bit of news showing an Excalibur, Excalibur, Sword of the Kings, destroying a Russian tank. So here's the video of the Excalibur taking out another Russian tank somewhere in the Mykolaiv Oblast, which means that it would be somewhere further up here, according to the caption, but we put it around here. So here's the video. Blah. And there we go. Another Russian tank up in flames and gone forever. And so with that, that's the end of the video, but nice to see that another Russian tank got absolutely flattened by another Excalibur round. And so with that, we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelenskyy. But before we do that, before everyone starts like, oh, it's the Zelenskyy speech, let me go real quick and pull this up. English to Ukrainian, because I have seen some people providing some information. Stall. Also, Matthew, did you know that that's what Stalin's name was? It meant like man of steel.
I did, actually.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a podcast called Real Dictators, and it's pretty good.
Interesting. So it looks like, according to Google Translate, it doesn't seem that it's saying that any of this means that. But
I'm seeing a lot of folks say it either means it's a type of knife, it's a curse word, or it means steel.
Well, we'll have to let that pan out during the speech from President Zelenskyy, because it looks like we're not getting any closer to an answer right now than we were before. But with that, it is now time to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 248 of the war in Ukraine. And so, without further ado, here is President Zelensky's speech on this day of the war.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Щойно завершив спілкування зі студентами та викладацькою спільнотою Єльського університету. Це один з провідних університетів США і всього світу. Його випускники мають значний вплив на ухвалення рішень політичних, бізнесових на рівні громадських та міжнародних організацій. Саме такими зверненнями, як це з представниками Єльського університету, ми розширюємо коло тих, хто розуміє, що відбувається в Україні і допомагає нам захищати свободу. Продовжую цю роботу і наступного тижня. Будемо і надалі розширювати наші можливості, в тому числі завдяки неформальній дипломатії, через громадськість в країнах-партнерах, через студентську спільноту, через професійні та бізнес-спільноти. Провів сьогодні переговори з Джорджією Мелоні, головою італійського уряду. Привітав пані прем'єр-міністра із призначенням, обговорили можливості для посилення нашої співпраці на різних напрямках. Це і безпековий напрямок, економіка, дипломатія, зокрема і інтеграцію нашої держави до європейських та євроатлантичних структур. Провів кілька нарад з військовими щодо поточної ситуації на передовій наших активних дій. Сьогодні у ворога звітують про нібито завершення їхньої мобілізації, про нібито непотрібність нових хвиль відправки громадян Росії на фронт. Ми відчуваємо на передовій зовсім інше. Хоча Росія і намагається посилити тиск на наші позиції, використовуючи мобілізованих, але вони настільки погано підготовлені та екіпіровані, настільки грубо застосовуються командуванням, що це дозволяє припустити, що вже скоро Росії може знадобитись нова хвиля відправки людей на війну. Ми до цього готуємось до того, що поточне російське керівництво шукатиме будь-які нові можливості, щоб продовжувати війну, зокрема і завдяки своїм спільникам в Ірані. Саме тому щоденно працюємо з партнерами для того, щоб посилити нашу протиповітряну оборону і інші наші оборонні можливості. Щоденно посилюємо захист нашої критичної інфраструктури, передусім енергетичної. Станом на цей час у багатьох містах і районах нашої країни застосовуються графіки стабілізаційних відключень. Близько 4 мільйонів українців мають обмеження зараз. Київ і область Житомирщина, Полтавщина, Рівненщина, Харківщина, Чернігівщина, Сумщина, Черкащина, Кіровоградська область, можливо, також аварійні відключення в інших регіонах країни. Робимо все, щоб у держави була можливість скоротити такі відключення. Окупанти додали ще один виклик на окупованій території. Фактично вони демонтують там всю наявну систему охорони здоров'я. Окупанти вирішили закривати медичні установи у містах, вивозити обладнання, машини швидкої, просто все. Тиснуть на лікарів, які ще залишилися в окупованих районах, щоб вони переїжджали на територію Росії. Передусім це стосується Херсонської області. Росія робить з Херсонщини зону без цивілізації, без елементарних речей, які доступні у більшості країн світу. Цей регіон до приходу Росії, як і всі інші області України, був цілком нормальним і безпечним. Там гарантувалися усі соціальні послуги людям, там гарантувалося життя. А тепер Росія намагається зробити Херсонщину буквально зоною відчуження. Світ повинен на це відреагувати. Наше Міністерство закордонних справ, усі наші представники інформують міжнародні організації і партнерів про цей новий ескалаційний крок окупантів. І я хочу звернутися зараз до усіх наших людей, які перебувають у цих окупованих містах і районах. Будь ласка, робіть усе, щоб допомагати одне одному, попри будь-які дії окупантів. Український прапор повернеться, нормальне життя ми повернемо, але потрібно витримати цей час, коли навіть формально окупанти підтверджують, що їм не утриматись на території України. І тому вони намагаються викрасти вже й медичне обладнання, поневолити медичний персонал. Я дякую Сполученим Штатам Америки. Сьогодні оголошено про черговий пакет військової допомоги Україні. Його обсяг $275 мільйонів. Дуже потрібні речі для наших оборонців. І вони дозволять нам крок за кроком звільняти нашу територію. Це не тільки те, що дозволяє нам просуватись на полі бою, це те, що дозволяє нам гарантувати людям фундаментальне право на життя. Хочу подякувати сьогодні Канаді, нашим давнім і щирим партнерам, за безпрецедентний вчинок щодо випуску суверенних облігацій Канади. Всі кошти від розміщення яких будуть спрямовані на допомогу Україні. Обсяг $500 мільярда, і ці облігації будуть доступними для інвестицій не лише в Канаді, а в усьому світі. Це надзвичайно потужний приклад для усіх наших партнерів. Канада – перша країна, яка запропонувала такий інструмент підтримки. Дякую тобі, Джастіне, пане прем'єр-міністре. Дякую Христі Фріланд, справжньому другу України. Слава усім, хто допомагає Україні боротись за свободу. Слава усім нашим героям. Слава Україні!
And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that also wraps out the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. I thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe, and also like this little stream, because that helps us to reach more people. More people can know about the Lee Spring Army if you hit the like button, and also, if you subscribe, it will keep you apprised of when these streams run, and when some of our videos come out. Of course, we run these streams every single day of the week, except for Mondays. We take that day off, but every other day, 6 days a week, you can expect this stream to run at the exact same time at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Every single day, like clockwork, unless if there's a odd exception. Out of 248 days of streams, we have only ended up missing 2, and both of those were due to internet connectivity issues. And so with that, thank you everyone so much once again for watching. And also, if you would like to help the Lee Spring Army grow a whole load, share this on your social media and have others share it as well. That also helps the Lee Spring Army to grow, reach more people, and hopefully continue to support Ukraine through the Sunday fundraisers. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the question segment, where we're going to answer all of the super chats that have been sent in and also answer as many live chats as we can. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And for our final question segment, we have 2 polls to address. And Enforcer, I had to say, you really cracked me up when you said maybe there's an odd circumstance. Oh, that was hilarious to me. It got me all cracked up.
Why? How did that crack you up?
I don't know, it was said kind of funny, but it got me laughing, so I'm trying to get myself back under control so I can read these polls off. The first poll said,
Okay.
the first poll said, which do you like? It looks like 53% said Lewis gun and 47% said DP-27 machine gun.
Yes, I'm glad to see that the Lewis gun won. Because the Lewis gun is the gun. Like, it is the gun. Like, that's the coolest gun ever. Like, in case y'all don't know, this thing's iconic. This thing is what, they use this thing in Star Wars, even. Like, did you know that, Matthew?
I didn't, actually.
Yeah, let me, Stormtrooper Lewis gun. I don't know a lot about Star Wars, but one thing I know is that they used a lot of, I guess you could say, guns from the Second World War to make the weapons in Star Wars, and you could see one right there. That's a Lewis gun without the magazine on it, and they also added a little bit of stuff to the, I guess you could say, the shroud over the barrel, and that's this turned into that. Pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, like, that's really neat. You can see a whole bunch of stuff like that in the original Star Wars, apparently. Apparently, they just used a load of weapons from all over the place. You can see a great picture of it here. This is a Lewis gun, and that's what they call, I guess, a T-21 in Star Wars. You can see that they're literally identical, except they took the magazine off and put some frilly stuff on the shroud. But still, really neat. But I heard that apparently... And I saw this on the internet, didn't really watch the show, but apparently one of the new Disney shows that has come out on Star Wars got a lot of bad rap because there was literally just an AK in the middle of, let me pull it up. Hang on, let me pull it up. Because back in the day, they'd at least try and camouflage these things a little where they looked neat. But let me pull up the Star Wars AK. Yeah, the AK thing here. I guess that's what it's called, a blaster. Also, like right here, that's literally not even made to look sci-fi. It's literally just an AK. Like in some
Disney's gotten a little savage.
Yeah, this man is about to be like, roll out of my block. When you're in, when you've got to defend the galaxy at 9, but defend Bakhmut at 10, you whip out this thing.
It does have that like California compliant like 10-round mag though.
Yeah, isn't that kind of, yeah, that's kind of lame when you think about it. Like, who in the world, what do you need a California compliant gun in the middle of the galaxy in some other place? Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Also, in this picture, you can see another AK, because that is an AK receiver right there. They covered up the magazine well with some kind of like a little sheet, and they also put
a rag at the end.
Yeah, they put a rag because rags, rags resist heat a whole load. Those don't catch on fire. But still, going down this rabbit hole, a little bit of a funny one. I'm glad to see that the Lewis gun did win. The DP-27/DP-28 is cool, don't get me wrong. It's still a really neat gun, but I still love the Lewis gun. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on. Also, S. Winiger, no, that is not politics. That is calling out the absurdity of having a California compliant gun.
Politics?
Well, yeah, that's not politics. That's calling out the absurdity of having a California compliant gun when in this cinematic universe, California doesn't even exist. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next for our second poll, the question was, do you think more effort should be put into gathering evidence for war crimes trials after the war? And right up front, I want to say that unless Putin, flees Russia, it's unlikely he'll ever see a war trial. But in the unlikely event that he will see one, it looks like 78% said, yes, we need more investigators. 7% said, I'm not sure. And 15% said, no, efforts are already underway. Now, for me, I think we should have more investigators. It looks like the UN sent in a team a while back to go ahead and start gathering evidence, but you definitely can't have enough investigators to go ahead and gather all the evidence possible. So I would say yes. But Enforcer, what do you say?
I would have to say that I believe that that it's really honestly, we should try and compile as much as we can still. It should, the attempts of trying to find more information and evidence on this should never cease, but I feel like we could already move forward as it is right now. The war crimes are clearly evident all over the place, and considering that a lot of these were most likely ordered by the high command, which then got their authorization from Putin, that puts them right in the line of fire, and I believe that we should try and have something happen against Putin and the Russian government as an institution for what they've done in Ukraine so far. It's outright despicable, especially when you see a grave with a marker 2,851 on it in a single area. that's enough to start a war crimes commission for sure, and I believe that evidence should still be compiled while it's going on and while this war still continues, even if the war crimes trials conclude. And so with that, I hope that does address that question, well, that poll fairly well. And also, I have seen a lot of people saying bliat and talking about what bliat means. Bliat is a Russian curse word, but what we're talking about is bulat. I'm sorry, not bluat. It's bulat. Bliat and bulat. I'm getting it all mixed up now. Bliat and bulat are two different things. It's not the same. And also, wouldn't that be kind of weird if you just drop the F-bomb every time you talked about your tank? You know, like, oh yeah, I'm hopping in the F. You know, yeah, I'm going to drive around the F. You know,
oh, man.
That would be kind of weird. I'm going to take this thing for a quick F. And so, with that, you can see how weird that would be to call a tank that. So it's not bliat, it's bulat. And it looks like a lot of people are saying it means steel or something similar. And so with that, we are on to the next poll if we have one. And if not, we are on into the questions.
All right. So, yes, up into the super chats. Up first, we have a $40 donation from Dwayne Porter, who says, no donuts fun to hear. You guys go get some food from Las Troas Cantina. Last time I was in Birmingham, I ate there, and it was very good. Slav Ukraine.
And
now, I'm not sure where that is, but if it's the one I'm thinking about, I think it might have recently just shut down. But I'm not sure if I'm thinking the same one.
Las Trojas Cantina. So... Oh,
it's still open.
We can reserve a table right there. It's closed now, but it will open at 11 a.m. tomorrow. So let's take a look. Where is this? So, it is... Oh, it's right there.
Oh, it's over there.
Yeah, it's right there. So yeah, we could totally drop by there and try and eat at that. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. Also, very interesting taste. I love myself some good Mexican food, and it's always delicious. But I do have to say one thing I have to complain about with Mexican food, well, specifically Chipotle. When I say Mexican food, it's that specific chain.
That's not really Mexican.
And it's not really Mexican. It's not really Mexican. Yeah, you're right. But still, I hate how some Mexican foods have that leaf put in them. I believe it's cilantro. I cannot stand the flavor of that. For some reason, it makes me reel. So hopefully, it doesn't have cilantro in any of the dishes, because I just don't like that stuff. But I love Mexican food, and generally, like, I guess you could say Central and South American food fairly well. I believe the only South American food we've really had is like Nando's Peri Peri, and, you know, once again, a chain restaurant. But still, with that, I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And thank you so much for the support, Dwayne Porter. It helps us out a lot. It helps us to keep this channel running and helps us to keep the lights on behind the scenes. And without that happening, this stream wouldn't be possible. And so I thank everyone who supports this channel. Regardless of the amount, any amount helps us to keep things going behind the scenes. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Konstantino Stetziuk, who does not leave a comment. But thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, would you like to add a few words?
Yes, I would. I would like to thank you so much for the support. You didn't throw in a comment, but of course the support does mean a lot. And it helps us to keep this channel running. And without your support, it wouldn't be possible. I say that every single time, but it's true. And I love to let y'all know that, because I hope that it makes y'all feel good for supporting us, because without y'all support, it's not possible for us to run this thing. And so it's entirely thanks to you that we're able to run the stream tonight. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Didn't throw in a comment, but we still appreciate the support nonetheless. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Enforcer for President, who says, I love your rabbit holes. Yes, he is my future president, and Enforcer Matt is my future vice president. More rabbit holes, please.
Hey, let's give it up for nepotism. And also, thank you so much for the support, Enforcer for President. I hope to be on Pennsylvania Avenue one day, and hopefully I will end up being a good president. Of course, some people want, you know, and this is kind of an interesting thing to me, a lot of people do have ambitions to become president. For some reason, though, a lot of these people want to be president during wartime, and I just got to say, that's like the worst time to be a president, is during a war. It's like, to me, I find, and of course we're covering a war right now, and that's what this whole entire channel covers, is really just the Ukraine war and any extenuations, things related to war or diplomacy. But still, while it's an interesting topic to cover, I hope that if I became president, there would be no wars at all. Not even wars of intervention in a way like we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Just try and keep it tame. Of course, that's a tall order these days. Of course, with the United States being the center of its sphere, we do have to get involved in those things quite often, even on smaller levels like we are in Syria right now. But I hope that if I became president, we could just enjoy a nice, prosperous 2 terms. Of course, always shooting for 2, but 2 prosperous terms in the United States. And then I sit there and go, well, it was fun, and I had my time as president. I think that would be a nice way to go as the president of the United States. And so with that, I thank you so much for
good luck to you, Enforcer, because politics is getting nasty these days. I wouldn't want anything to do with it.
Oh, you know, and speaking of that, it is politics. You know, I don't know. It's a really tough thing to talk about, of course, because we don't talk about politics a lot unless it's an equal critique of both sides. But I've got to be honest with y'all. It's getting pretty tough to really be on either side, because while both sides try and make themselves out to be different in ways, they almost end up being the same when you just get down to the basics of what they say and what they do. It's just a little bit different in some ways. But mostly, when I'm saying that, I'm not talking about policies. I'm mostly saying about how they interact with the public and each other. It's almost always, look at what they're doing to me. And it's like, come on. It's like, can you just focus on the policies instead of being like some kind of reactionary on what the other say? Anyways, we're not going through all that. This channel's about Ukraine, but I do thank you so much for all the support, and hopefully I will be able to become president in 2040 and be a somewhat good one. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support, Enforcer for President. You have a great name. I love that name, and I'm glad that I will have your vote in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Richard Daniel Jr., who says, hate to say this, but what happens to a Russian soldier that refuses to commit war crimes? Is it the same as U.S.?
No. Oh, no, it's not the same as the U.S. In the United States, whenever there's a war crime conducted, there's usually, well, you know, and when I say this, of course, there are the couple, because nothing's ever black and white. There's a decent amount of gray area. There are the occasional war crimes that every country commits that get swept under the rug, and sometimes we'll see that a war crime happened here and there by really any country. You could call out Australia, the United States, Britain. Almost every single country that every viewer is from on this channel has committed a war crime at one point or another. It's inevitable because you have hundreds of thousands of people on in a war, and of course you can't have you know, people who keep their cool the entire time. Someone will snap, something will happen. Usually in the United States, they're brought before some kind of a military tribunal, and something does happen to them, whether they get dishonorably discharged or they get put in Fort Leavenworth. Something will happen to most of them. Sometimes, though, very few times, it gets swept under the rug, and people will find out about it years later. Kind of like in Vietnam, a couple of things would happen like that, but for the large part, we try and hold war crimes accountable whenever they're brought up and whenever they're clearly visible, even if it's not brought up to the public's attention, from what I can tell. However, in Russia, it almost seems like war crimes are encouraged and they're not punished whatsoever. I have never seen the Russians make an attempt to try and curb the amount of war crimes that are being committed. In fact, it's talked about and lauded on Russian TV that there should even be more war crimes committed. Cities should be leveled. Ukrainians should just be wiped out en masse. And so, with that in mind, I'd have to say it's completely different than the United States. It's just, it's impossible. I mean, like, there's no way that there's no way that they'd be similar to the United States in any degree. And of course, and you know, and here's one thing I gotta say real quick. Everyone acts like it's either you cannot call out a flaw, or they act like because there is one flaw, the entire system is just screwed over. And when I say that the U.S. military has committed war crimes, like every military in the world, it has. But at the same time, the U.S. military is one of the best trained militaries in the world, and it goes out of its way almost 99% of the time to not commit war crimes. You're very hard pressed to find when they do. And so for that reason, I would have to say that while I do say that they do slip up here and there, everything slips up. And while it's an unfortunate slip up to have, luckily it's a very small amount of slip ups we do have, and we usually find the problem and root out the bad egg in a way and keep the whole thing rolling. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. and helping this channel to keep on running so that way we can answer questions like that. And thank you so much for helping this, well, I actually just said that. That's the second time I said that. But thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And I hope I addressed that question fairly well.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Justice Ryan, who says, I think that's hilarious when the Russian recruiter went to the Russian town to pick up his recruits, and he was looking around wondering, where the hell is everyone at? My heroes.
And thank you so much for the support. And I would actually agree, whenever a Russian conscription officer goes around and tries to find anyone anywhere, it's almost, I bet you it's really hard to track them down. Because remember that one video we had from Crimea, Matthew, where they tried to grab that one guy and he was holding on to like playground pieces and like kicking the guy in the face and stuff? It's probably like that all the time. We just don't get to see all the videos of that happening. But with that, I thank you so much for the support. Really good joke too. And also it has a lot of truth to it. And I bet you that it is really hard for the Russians to finish out these conscriptions. Also, just today, we didn't cover this in the news segment, but the Russians declared today that their partial mobilization has ended and they're never going to be doing another one. And they also said there's absolutely no reason for us to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. We would never do that. Kind of a little interesting that both of those statements came out today. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, and I hope we addressed that one fairly well.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Konstantino Stetsiuk once again, who says, I born on Lviv, still got property there after the war all. Your guys welcome. Thanks so much for help of my country of origin.
And can you reread that one real quick?
Yes, and I don't think Constantino is a native English speaker, so Constantino, thank you very much for the support, but bear with me. I'm going to try to piece it together the way I think you meant it. He says, I was born in Lviv. I still have property there, hopefully after the war as well. You are welcome. Thanks so much for helping Ukraine, which is my country of origin.
And thank you so much for the support, Constantine. Of course, it took us a second time to get it, but of course, I do understand that you are from Ukraine. You have been in here before and supported this channel. I just had to hear it a second time real quick just to make sure I understood it correctly. But that is really cool. It sounds like you are from the city of Lviv. And real quick, Matthew, if you don't mind, wow, look at that, actually. That's really neat. You can pretty much see where the city proper really ends. You know, like it's like almost like a triangle-shaped city in a way. If you're seeing that, Matthew, hopefully you're seeing that like I am.
A triangle shape, you said?
Yeah, well, it's kind of circular, but more so of a triangle because you have a point up here, kind of a point, not really, it's a rounded edge. But you have 2 points down here and then a rounded edge over here, so it's kind of like a triangle in shape.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, somewhat. Honestly, I'll concede if you had said no, I would have been like, it really doesn't. But anyways, let's drop down to Lviv and take a look. Pretty neat, pretty neat. It's got a decent amount of older buildings in it. It looks like they were made in the late 18th century. Well, the late 19th century. This one could use a little bit of touching up, though. But still, a really neat city. And this is where a lot of Western support comes through, from what we know. Let's drop down here. Oh, we're in a house. No, we're in like some kind of a barber shop. Oh, shit. They got an Instagram. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, I don't ever cuss. But they got an Instagram right here. Follow them. But anyways, interesting. This is actually a really nice little place. Like, they got crown molding and everything. But anyways, let's hop back out on the street because we weren't there for the parlor. We were there for the street. Oh, this is a pretty neat street. This is late 19th century, like, street layout right here with the very...
That is pretty nice.
Yeah, that is really cool looking, actually. That's neat. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Constantine. And also, I thank you so much for enjoying this channel and the efforts we go through to continue to bring the news of what's going on in Ukraine and also raise as much support as we can. We have raised, at this moment, $573,000 in support of Ukraine, and it only gets higher each and every week. And hopefully, we can shoot for even higher in these next couple of weeks. Of course, we're going to start our aggressive social media campaign, of course, hopefully with y'all's help as well, to try and spread the Lee Spring Army to as many people as we can and let them know what we do. And we're going to be trying to reach out to all kinds of organizations all over to try and see if we can reach a $100,000 fundraiser. It's just... It's something that I have wanted to do ever since we started doing fundraisers. Is I was like, wow, wouldn't that be impressive if the Lee Spring Army became such a force, such a fundraising and like pretty much force of goodwill that $100,000 fundraiser was within our reach one day. That's just something for some reason that I've set in my mind as a goal to try and do, and I want to see hell or high water if we can do it, and I hope we can. I believe we can, and if you think we can, throw an LSA in the chat, because I would love to know that eventually we could have such a grand fundraiser for Ukraine and for a nonprofit that is really helping out over there. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Constantine. And I hope that you do have property returned to back in Lviv once the war is over. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And next up, we have a $20 super chat from Richard Gibson, who says, Aloha from Waikiki. Here's a little something for the Donut and Coffee Fund, and also Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And he's from Waikiki, which I believe is on Hawaii, if I'm correct, Matthew.
Waikiki. Maybe so.
Why?
It sounds Hawaiian.
I think at Waikiki Beach. Yep, there it is. Hawaii. So let's go to Hawaii. Here it is right here in Hawaii. We can also see that
that water is green.
That water is green. You can also see where they dredged the channels for the ships to enter the harbor, which is really cool. And moving on down here to Waikiki, here it is. And let's drop down here and see what this beach looks like. Wow, that's really nice.
That is pretty nice, actually. Yeah. There's one of those big, like, tired things out there in the water.
It's all fun and games until a wave hits it. And so with that, it's really cool to see. Let's drop down on a street view, not on the beach, but on the street. What is Waikiki Beach? Wow, this place is Ritz. Goodness. Wow,
I've heard it is very expensive down there. Very expensive.
I've heard it is, and it's an impressive place for sure. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and also letting us take a look at where you're from at Waikiki. And also, let's go over here real quick because this is Pearl Harbor, the famous Pearl Harbor that everyone probably knows. If you're from the United States, you know about Pearl Harbor. We can also see a memorial to the USS Utah because it wasn't just the USS Arizona that was sunk at its moorings. The USS Utah was as well, and we can see it right here, still sticking out of the water a little bit. A lot of these ships were never recovered, although you could say that this one was in such shallow water that it could have been refloated, but it never really was. They left them there as memorials to all the sailors that are still inside of those ships, pretty much as a large burial capsule for most of them. And let me see if I can find the USS Arizona here real quick by eye. Let me see. It's somewhere. Gotta find it. Dangnammit. I think it's well, where in the world? Come on. You can find it. You can find it fairly easy. There it is. Here we go. This is the USS Arizona, of course, the most famous ship that was destroyed at Pearl Harbor on December 7th. And interestingly enough, I had to write an essay about that just days ago on the movie Tora, 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 and how historical events in the Pacific Theater were interpreted around 30 years later in film. So really interesting essay to write. Also, it's a very interesting thing to think that the USS Arizona went down almost within minutes of getting hit. They say that a bomb blew straight through I believe, the funnels and into the boilers, just causing the ship to explode pretty much. But still, pretty crazy to see. And of course, a very important place in U.S. history. The beginning of World War II for us was right here. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support. And it was really cool to take a look at Waikiki, which was a crazy place. Really cool. And so with that, on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from William Sullivan, who says, I hate cilantro, and I love Bob Sykes barbecue.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support. And I, too, don't really like cilantro too much. It's just not my favorite kind of spice. It's not really nice. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. And I have not heard about that barbecue, but I will give it a try. Barbecue is delicious. And hopefully that one's one of those top-notch banger barbecues. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and also sharing with me that you, too, are not a big cilantro fan.
All right. And up next, we have another $20 super chat from Konstantino Stetsiuk, who does not leave a comment this time. But Konstantino, thank you very much once again. And Enforcer, would you like to add a few more words again?
Yes, I would. I would like to thank you so much once again for the support, Konstantino. Wait a minute, was it Constantine or Constantino?
Constantino.
Why
Okay, I'm sorry. For some reason, I thought it was Constantine, not Constantino. I think that's because because the whole time I was talking about your name, I was thinking about throwing out, oh yeah, Constantine the First founded Constantinople. I think that's why I kept on calling you Constantine, because I kept on thinking that. But thank you so much once again for the support, Constantino. It helps this channel to keep on running, and you didn't throw in a comment, but the support does say a lot. It says that you want this channel to keep on going, and thanks to your support, it can. And so with that, thank you so much once again. It really does help us out a lot. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have an $18 super chat from Junebug72, who says, hello, I will give my question to the chat, please. Thank you.
And thank you so much for the support. And we will make sure to hand that over to the live chat. And so, before we do, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping this thing to keep on rolling. And so, let's hear that live chat.
All right, and the live chat question goes to Just John, who says, if you were under a phosphorus munition and looked up, could you dodge it, or is it a fine mist?
I think in some instances you can dodge it, but I don't really know. Because sometimes it looks like it comes down in these little pyroclastic balls, pretty much, of fire. And so it looks like it could maybe like hop around and dodge them a little bit, but at the same time, there's probably also smaller burning particulates in the air. So I don't really know if you can dodge it or not. That's something that I guess you would have to see through infantry being right under it, whether they can dodge it or not. But honestly, who would want to put infantry in that situation to see? But maybe we could get an answer from someone who may know in the live chat. I'm not entirely sure. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we were able to address that question fairly well. I mean, we don't really know a lot in that direction, so with that, thank you once again for the support. We will see if someone does get an answer for that in the live chat, and with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to keep this thing going. And I don't know about you, Matthew, I just want to ask you this, but for some reason, does it feel like the whole entire world is moving through molasses tonight? Because for some reason, for me, I feel like my brain is hardly working with anything else for some reason. Is that just me, or are you feeling that too?
Like a brain drain? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it almost feels like I'm like living almost like outside of my body. Like it's like my brain isn't even attached to my body or something like that. Like it feels like I feel weird tonight. Like it just feels like things are almost grinding to a complete stop. But with that,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's exhaustion or something, or maybe it's just coffee overdose. I'm not really sure. But
the coffee.
Yeah, because, you know, anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
But look, before we move on to our next one, I have to address a live chat comment. Richard Daniel Jr., I am disappointed. He says, I'm from the Deep South and barbecue is disgusting. I ate it once, never again. I'm not a tomato person, but fried pickles is great. Richard, how can you not like barbecue?
Richard, you haven't had good barbecue.
Wait, Richard, how can you be from the Deep South and not like barbecue, man? That's like the main thing around.
Dude, barbecue, what the world? Barbecue is the best thing
ever. Come on, Richard.
Come on, Richard. The barbecue is delicious. Pulled pork, the brisket, all that stuff. It's great. I mean, oh man, we're gonna. Maybe you had bad barbecue. Maybe that's why you only ate it once. Maybe someone didn't cook it right. But you got to try it again, Richard. You got to. It's good stuff. I promise you. Let me think. Pulled pork sandwich with some barbecue sauce on it, and some fried green tomatoes to the side, or fried okra, and a sweet tea. And I think that would be like a meal plan. I think you would be set at that, Richard. If you didn't like it then, I guess you just don't like it, which is really crazy. To think you grew up in the South and don't like barbecue. But of course, I hate to hear that. I really do, honestly. That's like
Richard said again in all caps, nasty.
Nasty. Oh my gosh! I can't believe you, Richard. I can't. You're speaking blasphemy against the Church of the South.
Now there is a really good place down here called a Full Moon Barbecue, and yes, I'm going to go ahead and give them a shout out. Pretty good. We had that tonight. Very good pulled pork sandwich. Pulled pork.
Let me go and try and find them real quick, Matthew. At least the one.
Oh, careful with that. Careful.
Careful. Let's see, here's one of them. Here's one of the full moons right here. They serve killer good food. You can see some of it right there on a plate. You see some of it right here. You see some ribs with some baked beans and some fries.
That pulled pork sandwich with that sauce and also a side of that fried okra, and you're in business. And also they have that really like sickening sweet, like southern sweet tea that everybody like knows about. It's like that type.
And you can see a loaded potato with some pulled pork on it. You can see one of their pulled pork sandwiches. These things are good. Like, they're great. And you get the stuff called chow chow, and you put it on there. Oh my gosh, it's just complete. It's a complete meal, that one burger right there. And then here's some brisket. I don't know what kind of sauce that is. Is that like ranch? Is that ranch on brisket?
I don't know. That's kind of strange.
If that's ranch on brisket, that's criminal. I will say that's criminal.
That might be white sauce.
I've never heard of that. But with that, you can see some nacho chips. Those look pretty good with the jalapeno. Oh man, I bet you they're good with the jalapenos. Some more ribs. I mean, like, good stuff, good food. You ever come through and there's a full moon barbecue around, go try it. And so with that, I hope that addresses that real quick. And Richard, you gotta convert. You gotta try the barbecue again. And so with that, we're on to the next one. But I cannot believe that, Richard.
Right. And up next, and also Richard, we're just playing with you, by the way. We're not being like totally serious. But anyways, moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat from Konstantino Stetsiuk once again, who says, "Everyone, welcome to Lviv after war to party."
And thank you so much for the invite, Konstantino. And of course, I think a lot of people are going to be coming to Ukraine after the end of the war. Probably just to see what happened over there, and of course probably show their support to the Ukrainians. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and I thank you for the invitation. We might try and take you up on that after the war. We're not entirely sure if we'll be able to make it to Ukraine or not. It'll depend on what's going on way down the road, months from now. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can be here for the end of the war. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right. And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Peter Woofen, who says, "Slava Ukraine."
And thank you so much for the support, Peter Woofen, and also Slava Ukraine. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Hamlet K. Squid, who says, "Here's a few Kazakhstan pesos for the Putin fund. Did you notice the new anthem uses the Ukrainian pronunciation of H instead of the Russian G? For example, he put in a Ko 3, A, upside down U, a backwards B, a K, O, upside down L and O."
Can you put that in the live chat?
Yes. It looks like Russian or Ukrainian. I'm not really sure, but I definitely can't pronounce that. Oh, and also at the end, he apologized. He said, "Sorry about that last word, Matt." And thank you very much, because I have no idea how to say it.
So that looks like Kozas Koru, I believe, or Kogu, which would be, I believe, the Russian pronunciation of that. But yeah, that's a good point. I never actually realized that, but you're right. It does do that in the song. And so with that, I thank you for the support and also pointing it out. And that is cool to see. We've got more of like a Ukrainified version of the anthem than before. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and pointing that out. You got some really keen ears there, and also connecting all the dots. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this channel rolling, and of course, to help us to keep the lights on behind the scenes. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Sean Collins, who says, "For your trip to Ukraine."
And thank you so much for the support, Sean Collins. I think we will most likely be trying to take a trip to Ukraine at the end of this war, because it would be neat to go over there and meet all of the people that we've talked to, like Starsky, and of course take a look at some of the things that we were talking about on stream on the days they were happening, right there, standing in the very fields where it occurred. I think that would be really interesting. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you, Sean, for helping this channel to keep on rolling. You've been around for quite some while and helping to support the stream, and of course, thank you so much once again for doing that. It really has helped us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and moving on to our next one, we have a super chat from Oats Air, who says, puts in a $10 donation as well, and says, "Take a question from the chat." Slava LSA and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support once again, Oatsair. And in your honor, we will take one from the chat. And also, Slava Ukraini and Slava the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, what's the live chat, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question goes to Lord Loxy, who says, just for kicks, ask Enforcer to show a cold start with the Abrams.
Oh, now you're asking for something legit right there. We will pull that up. That was a good live chat you picked out there, Matthew. Cold start of Abrams. This is an Oh no. Oh hey, by the way, y'all, in case you are into games, Victoria 3 did come out, and it's a really interesting game. But beyond that, it's just an ad. We're trying to get through the ad. So let's listen to this cold start. This video was filmed in 10 years ago, so the audio quality isn't going to be that great. But here's the video. This was recorded with 16-bit audio.
Yes, it was.
So with that, that's the end of that video. But still, it actually sounds fairly similar, and that's really cool too. And so with that,
you know that the Adventures of Mr. Toad, and
yes,
he was like all upset about the motor car and a motor car.
Oh, I wish we could show that, but it's a Disney thing. It's copyrighted.
Oh, they will come down and get us so tough.
It's a motor car.
Yes, that's what that reminds me of, like hearing that tank fire up.
Wait a minute. Let me see. Oh, tell me, Matthew, can you hear this? Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, so
sound like Twitter.
Yeah, it kind of did. I don't know why I did it like that, but anyways, like, and then after he would do that, it would go. I don't know if it picked that up, but it would, like, the music would go like that, pretty much.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, that's it. For some reason, I remember that show. The best part of that little Toad episode thing was when they got on the shootout on the train, and like all those cops are on the train just shooting at them. Like, for some reason, that was like the funniest thing to me as a kid. But anyways, with that,
I like when he walked in there with those badgers. Was it badgers or weasels?
It was weasels. It was. Wait,
that's right. Yeah.
I think a badger was in charge of them, but they were all weasels.
Oh yeah, that's right. That badger. It wasn't a honey badger, but it was a badger.
Wait. I think we can show pictures of it without getting copyrighted.
Oh yeah, we can.
Yeah. Adventures of Mr. Toad. All right, so images. All right, I know. There's the Toad. Yeah.
There's that look.
It's
there
a motor car. Yeah. And there's the badger. There it is.
Yes.
That is.
Oh wait, it is a honey badger.
It is a honey badger.
No way.
Oh man, dude, man, that's crazy. Honestly, that we remember that. But yeah, it was a great little clip, and also. I hope y'all enjoyed our little rabbit hole on that one. It's just bringing back childhood memories, which is great. I love this little episode. And so with that, we are going to be moving on into the next question. But thank you so much once again, Oatsair, for sponsoring that live chat. I'm sure that they love to have their live chat answered. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Wes Fry, who says, "Is it possible to get a semi-accurate count of civilians killed in Ukraine versus Ukrainian army killed in Ukraine? I think the ratio will be a sobering reminder of who the Russians actually attacked." Bah.
And thank you so much for the support. And sadly, we will probably never get accurate measures and counts on the amount of civilians killed. One thing that a lot of people, I believe, labor under the misconception of is that things like casualty reports and censuses measure every single person in a population or every single person that was killed in a war. And sadly, while our efforts are the best they can be in trying to estimate how many people there are in a census or how many people there were killed in a war, they're never really accurate. They could be thousands off. And if you look at World War II casualties numbers, the Soviets could have lost anywhere in between 12 million to 30 million soldiers, and we really don't know where that number really fell. It's somewhere in between 12 and 30 million. It could be on the far ends of either or somewhere in the middle. And so sadly, we don't have an accurate count for all of the civilians killed at this moment. And I don't think even if this war was 100 years in the future, we would have an accurate number then, sadly. But we do know that it's probably somewhere in the tens of thousands, most likely close to 40 to 50,000 at this point, or even higher. Usually civilian casualties are a lot higher than military casualties in most wars in the 20th century. Getting on towards the late 20th and 21st centuries, that does change. But with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope we gave a decent answer for it. And with that, on to the next one.
All right, and real quick to address the poll, have you ever had that Southern sweet tea, aka diabetes tea? It looks like 44% said yes, 20% said what the hell, and 36% said no.
Have you ever had that Southern sweet tea? I would have to say, if y'all have ever had Milo sweet tea, like, that's a reliable constant of tea. I would honestly say, Matthew, you know, like how there's like le meter or le kilogram, le kilo. Let me see if I can pull that up. Le kilogram. Yeah, right there. Yeah, I got the name right. The kilogram. This is. Oh, no. A kibble balance. Huh? Isn't that like a diet that you give a dog as a kibble balance?
Yeah, a balance of kibble.
But here is le kilogram. This thing is pressure sealed, and inside of it is exactly the weight of 1 kilogram. This is the original kilogram. And I feel like, like for sweet tea, Milo sweet tea is like le kilogram. Like if it varies off of Milo sweet tea, it's either getting unsweet or sweet based off of that constant variable. And so with that, I hope that does address that there for a second on that poll, because of course, living in the South, we have had that super sweet tea, and then we've had the unsweet sweet tea that makes it feel like it's leaving a film on your teeth. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, Konstantino Stetsiuk puts in another super chat of $20, and thank you very much, Konstantino, for the very generous support tonight. He says, I'm inviting you guys seriously, and anyone from chat. Now my apartment's busy for refugees. After word, all welcome.
Oh, and thank you so much once again, Konstantino. And I think if we do make it over there, we will take you up on the offer and go over there and meet you. Because Lviv, of course, is pretty much the first stop once you get into Ukraine if you were going by car. And we most likely would be going by car. And so with that, I thank you so much once again. And we may take you up on that offer. And that's incredibly kind of you, too, to offer that to anyone who wants to come by. And also, it's really nice of you to have taken on refugees and be allowing them to use your apartment in the meantime. That's really kind of you and shows that you care a decent amount about your fellow countrymen. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And thank you so much for lending it out to refugees right now, so that way they have a place to sleep while the Ukrainian armed forces, I don't know why I'm stuttering so much tonight, but the Ukrainian armed forces continue to fight on the front lines to defend the land that their house was on. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for your kindness. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Dakman555, who says, there was once an army of orcs who targeted civilians for sport, and once the war ends, they can try and pretend, but they'll all have their day in court. Don liked the stream for the LSA, Don.
And thank you so much for the support, Don. Don, means a lot to us, Don. And also, Don, I think your rhyme is a little bit off, Don, because when you put them in the cellar hole, they're going to be put in there and look like a huelo.
And so with that, thank you so much for that. Was actually a pretty good rhyme. And of course, thank you so much for helping out this channel and also throwing in something fairly original right there. That was actually pretty good. And so with that,
we are on to the next one, Don. But thank you so much once again, Don.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Jay, who says, just wanted to show some love. Great job, guys. I live in Clinton, Kentucky. We just had our Civil War days at Columbus, Beaumont, featuring reenactments.
And he said Columbus, Kentucky?
He said Clinton, Kentucky.
Clinton, Kentucky.
Clinton.
We're not getting political. I heard as soon as I heard that town name, I was like, "Oh crap!" I was like, "Someone's going to say something about that." No politics, please. I know that that just triggered someone
somewhere, and then, oh, you know. But anyways, let's take a look at this town. This is a tiny one. Oh, man. This reminds me of a lot of towns here in Alabama. We grew up in a town a lot like this. I won't say the exact one, but there's one nearby called Childersburg, to where we live. It's right outside of Birmingham. And you could tell that it did have better days, kind of like this one. It's so sad to see that small towns kind of have been going through a depression recently, like all of them. And they try and beautify the best they can. And we can see, you know, that this town, Clinton, is putting in new sidewalks and stuff. But man, it's such an uphill battle for the small towns, and I feel sorry for them because no one really looks out for small towns. They're always thrown to the wayside. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and also letting us take a look at your hometown, Kentucky. I love the courthouse. That's a nice courthouse. Really, I mean, like, geez, this is actually a lot better than the courthouse we had in our hometown, and this is a very small place. Also, interestingly enough, the town's called Clinton, but the schools are called Hickman. Hickman. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm getting at, Matthew? I couldn't hear that, Matthew. All I heard was bleh.
Oh, I had to be like really close to my mic now for some reason. I don't know why, but I said yeah.
Oh, like, wait a minute. Where is this in Kentucky? Oh, it's right south of Paducah. Well, it's right near the Mississippi River, really. But with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that did address the comment fairly well. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep reporting the news of the war in Ukraine, and also taking little looks at towns like Clinton, Kentucky. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat once more from Dwayne Porter, who says, "Hey Enforcer, could you speak more to that about face by Putin? I believe when the Indian Defense Ministry made that statement yesterday about no nukes, now they're acting innocent."
Well, I thank you for the support first off, and I would have to agree that this has been a complete 180 reversal. But at the same time, I don't know why the straw for the Russians to do a 180 would be the Indian Ministry of Defense, because while the Indians are a large country population-wise, economically they are not, I guess you could say, that big. I guess for the Russians they would be, though, considering they were part of BRICS, so that does add in a decent amount. But still, it's kind of weird to see them do a 180 like that. And if it was based entirely off of the Indian Ministry of Defense's statements, then hey, I give huge credit to the Indian Ministry of Defense. They were the ones who finally got it done out of everyone. But still, with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Miguel G, who says, "The white and blue shirt is Russian Navy."
And also, thank you for the support. And that is true. The white and blue shirt is the Russian Navy, but it looks like the prisoner that was in that video at the beginning in Belgrade, it looked like it was a white and black striped shirt, which wouldn't be in the Navy. I don't even think that's a standard issue shirt in the Russian Armed Forces in any branch. And it looks like it may have just been a normal shirt. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Yuri Bench, who says, "Good morning. Israel is starting to get some courage, and maybe in the near future it will be involved in war."
And thank you for the support. And of course, it's great to hear from you again, Yuri Bench. I believe you are from Tel Aviv. And what's very crazy to me, oh, wait a minute, hang on. What was that? True size map. Yeah. Let me go pull that up real quick. I'm interested. Get rid of these. All right, so I'm interested. Israel. That's always one I want to. Wow, dang! Israel's actually pretty big when you put it in Ukraine. That's actually a lot more sizable than I thought it would be, because when it's getting further south and closer to the equator, it does not look that big. But that's actually quite sizable.
That is.
Let's run that over here to Britain. So you can fit all of London in Israel. Wow. It's actually really impressive. Like good lord, if you put the bottom of Israel in Bournemouth, it reaches all the way up towards Whitby. And it luckily bypasses Hull. And real quick, one more thing. Moving Israel over here. Israel is always a conundrum to me because the scale of it and also how narrow it could be at some points seems kind of odd. Now,
it's not that big.
It's not that big, actually. No, it could fit. Wow, wait a minute. That is really small. Like,
we drive from like one end of Birmingham to the other sometimes just because we have to, and it's not that big really. It almost goes from just Bessemer to Trustful and a little bit of a leeway on each side, but that's about it. That's nuts. That's crazy, actually. So it's big in some ways, smaller in others, but still, I thank you so much once again for the support. And it does look like Israel may be joining the war quite soon, actually. Well, not joining the war quite soon. It looks like they are starting to provide supplies and also information, and that they're finally picking a side. I don't know if that means that they'll be joining the war soon, but if they did, I don't think the Ukrainians would object to it one bit. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And Travis said that's not how maps work. We went over this,
it is.
We went over this last night. Pull up the Mercator projection right here. Just Google that and read it, and that's how flat maps work. So just letting you know, because they're and here's something funny to me. I don't mean to make a beef with you, but someone will come in here and say something like that, and I'll be like, no, that's not necessarily true. I'll try and politely deny it. And then they'll go to another channel, they'll be like, he always thinks he's right. And then I'll actually pull up something like this to prove it. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a $5 super chat from LG, who says, why doesn't Ukraine use CRAM systems to counter the Iranian drones?
Great question. It may be cost inefficient, because one thing that's always important to remember is that while human lives are valuable, if you make every single human life worth spending $1 billion for, then you're going to run out of money to keep this war going for a while. And that may be the reason why we haven't seen that CRAMs have been considered a viable option in the current war, is for that. And it also may be because the Ukrainians don't have any CRAMs, I believe, at the moment. I believe they have NASAMs and they have Gepards, and so they're trying to use the equipment they have that is actually there. So CRAMs may be viable, but they're still incredibly expensive to field and also expensive to run, because it fires an exorbitant amount of ammunition, and all those rounds...
You know, Enforcer, honestly, I wonder if we don't send them because we don't want Russians to capture one of them.
Well, it'd be very hard to capture one of those because they're fixed emplacements. Well, some of them are mobile.
Well, I think they can be put on trailers, is where I've seen them.
They can be, and real quick, Matthew, let me... Oh, crap. Dang it, it flew off. I saw the mosquito that's been in my room for, like, all day. I was about to kill it. But anyways, getting back to this, that is true. They can be loaded on trailers, but usually they're fixed in place. Even on a trailer, they're usually just stationary. And they would usually be near major cities like Dnipro, Kharkiv, or Kyiv. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And thank you so much for the support, and also for raising a pretty good question, because it is a good one. I'm just thinking it may be a little cost inefficient. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And next up, we have a $5 super chat from CA Lags. Excuse me. I thought I heard something behind me there. CA Lag says, I turned around so slow. I was like, sound like somebody walked right up behind me. That was sketchy. But anyways, CA Lag says, I don't think the orcs can have a victory parade next year. No victory, nothing left to parade. And the orcs are all, those bad German people that used to exist.
And also, I thank you for the support. I would have to agree that the orcs are definitely that. And also, I thank you so much for the kind words and supporting this channel. It does mean a lot to us. And of course, it helps this thing to keep running. And without viewers like you who help to support this channel, it wouldn't be possible for us to be on stream tonight. This is the only way we support the channel. And of course, it does mean a lot to us that people watch this channel and support us to keep it running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope I did address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Richard Gibson, who says, Aloha again. Love you going down the rabbit holes. Very informative. If ever visiting Hawaii, give us a heads up. We will give you an LSA Hawaii welcome.
And thank you so much for the support, Richard Gibson. And also, I thank you for enjoying the rabbit holes. We try and not do them a lot, because one thing that the rabbit holes do cause is that it causes us to run overtime a good bit, and also a large amount of polls cause us to run overtime. Those two things have been contributing to incredibly long streams, so we try and curtail them for that reason. But honestly, if I could, I hate to say this, but editing videos is a huge pain most of the time. It's a very labor-intensive process to get very little out of it. Like, you'll spend like 8 hours working on a 5-minute video. But if I could, I would make videos on every single rabbit hole I did, because they're interesting, they're cool, and I like them. I love rabbit holes, and I hope a lot of y'all do too. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Richard. And thank you so much for extending an invitation our way as well. We just got one from Constantino to go to Lviv, so it looks like you and me, Matthew, we're going to be traveling to the far corners of the world, literally on the opposite sides, going to Lviv and Hawaii at the same time. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a $5 super chat from Susan Reichel, who says, "Are you guys dressing up for Halloween?"
Dressing up for Halloween? Well, I would be, but we have specials to run on Monday. We're going to be putting out 2 little videos. One from me, one from Matthew. We're most likely going to make Matthew's a premiere, if I'm correct, Matthew?
Yes.
And mine will be coming out as a normal video, most likely in the middle of the day. And so sadly, we will not have time on Monday, which is supposed to be our day off, to do anything related with Halloween, because we'll be running pretty much the channel that day, because, you know, it's a holiday, so we work on holidays. it's kind of, for some reason, that's how it works. When you start doing YouTube, holidays aren't holidays. You work harder on holidays than any other time, which is kind of odd. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Captain Hello, who says, "Hi from Copenhagen. Good job in Slava Ukraine."
What? Copenhagen?
Copenhagen?
You mean Copenhagen?
It's Copenhagen.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, Captain Hello. And also, I love Copenhagen. Copenhagen is a great place. They also have a great dip.
Put it into Google Translate real quick.
Okay, let's see. Copenhagen, pronunciation.
Copenhagen.
That's the British
Oh,
pronunciation.
dang, it's Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, Copenhagen.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. What?
Not with such an emphasis on the HAG, but something like that.
So, interestingly enough, man, did you know that whenever the British had problems in the Napoleonic Wars, they would just sail up to Denmark and destroy the Danish fleet?
Dang.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know why they did that. But anyways, moving on from that, let's drop down to Street View in Copenhagen. Oh, this is neat. I like this. This is like...
Seeing a lot of bars on windows, if that says anything.
Well, I mean, there's bars on windows in the middle of Italy. I mean, you know, like, it's just, it is what it is.
Oh, I mean, I know about Italy. I mean, there's a lot of, like, thefts that happen over there from what I hear.
What in the world is this?
It's, a cigar shop, maybe.
A guy on a motorcycle with a rifle. Looks like a crag almost, with like a cigar. Well, hang on, we gotta look in that store. Where in the world is it? Dang nabbit, we lost it! There's a store called Naked, which is a shoe store, but I don't think we want to go in that one. But I thank you so much for the support, Captain Hello. And also, really cool to take a look at your town of Copenhagen. Also, real quick, let's drop down to the square. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, that is nice. This is real nice. Isn't that nice? Isn't it?
2030 now.
2030 now.
I don't know what that means, but
and
I can't read. Oh, creating the future now.
UN Sustainable Development Goals. Interesting. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and also letting us take a look at your town of Copenhagen. Really neat place and got some really nice parks in it and stuff to be pretty much on a couple of islands or what is really just the edge of a peninsula. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope you enjoyed us taking a look at your town of Copenhagen. And also, thank you so much for enjoying the efforts our channel goes through to cover this news every night. And Slava Ukraini. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from S. Winiger, who says, "I'm going to toss more Monet in for this. During the battle for Hostomel, the Ukrainian National Guard used all of their AA munitions and had to retreat and rearm."
And thank you for the support, S. Winiger, and that is true. The Ukrainian National Guard just started beating the Russians alive on the Hostomel. They actually pushed them off, and then, of course, they retreated afterwards. But then when they moved back forward, they then got pushed off by the major Russian wave that was moving down their way. But I thank you so much once again for support and sharing that little tidbit of information with us. And with that, we are on to the next one while I take a look at Bunker 536.
Oh. Huh.
Or Bunker 535, or Bunker 537. Are there no pictures of this stuff? Like,
well, while you take a look at Bunker 537 and 535 and 536, our next super chat is from Indy Andy 4C, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Starsky's buddy Flashback needs a car for his unit. Do you think we can buy a truck in Poland and send it over to them? What kind should we get, or let them specify the need?
and I thank you so much for the support, Andy. I have heard that a lot of people have said that Flashback is trying to raise funds for a car. Sadly, there's no way for our channel to help due to our limitations, because we would either have to run a PayPal to fundraise for that, which is one thing that we don't want to do, because I feel like that starts kind of like going too much out on like a trust fall kind of thing. Like, do y'all trust me to manage the funds? And I don't want to put anyone in a situation where they have to be like, yeah, you know, do I trust them or do I not? So sadly, we can't help them. But y'all can. I think if y'all wanted to, y'all could hop over there on his channel and help him out. And so unfortunately, there's not really a lot we can do on this channel, because everything we do is through YouTube Give, so that way it can be on stream, and there is actual accounting on Google's end of y'all's funds that have been raised and where it's actually going. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Indy Andy. Sadly, there's not really a way for us to help due to our limitations and how we use YouTube Give. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from, hold on just a minute here. There we go. All right, so we have another $5 super chat from S. Winiger, who says, Russia buys Iran drones with an arrow pointing to. Russia uses drones on civilians with another arrow pointing to. Israel don't like Iran. Another arrow. Israel bombs drone plant in Syria funded by Iran. Cover that, question mark.
We would cover it, but we've used this entire stream time to cover the war in Ukraine. We have tried to branch out to other news before, and a lot of people didn't really seem to care or like it. And so we just stayed on Ukraine, and we don't really cover a lot of stuff that occurs internationally. And so with that, I thank you for support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Enforcer, can you believe there was some guy in the live chat trying to get on to me about saying there were 6 rotors on that drone instead of I missaw and said 6. Did you see that?
I actually did see. That's funny, Matthew, because one thing y'all may not know is that Matthew's always like, "Don't address the haters," and Matthew's gonna address.
I typically
the
don't, but like, I don't even understand how you can make an issue out of something that simplistic. Like a mistake that simple. It's like if you get that caught up in it, you need other things to think about rather than that. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from let's see here. I'm about to butcher this name. I'm so sorry, but it's a foreign name. Woj Sish Suzbansky, who says Bulat is Saimeter, a type of oriental saber with a pommel with a characteristic wide feather widening toward the point.
Oh, thank you so much for the support and also sharing that information with us, because that actually gives us a meaning behind the name Bulat, which is apparently some kind of a saber. That's really cool. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $4 super chat from Fuzz the Cat, who says multilinguistic YouTuber, multilinguistic YouTuber, Xiaomin NYC has been sponsored by YouTube to attend APEC 2022 and interview country leaders. He asked for questions.
And I thank you for the support. And sadly, I don't really have any questions to give. I wouldn't really want to ask any questions. Oh, I'll have any questions to answer from these people. You know, that's like going like with Putin specifically. It's like going and asking Hitler why did he commit atrocities? It's, you know, it's a really pointless question to ask. So sadly, I don't have anything to ask. But one thing I guess if I could throw in a question for him to ask, it would be, when are you going to keel over and die already? I guess that would be the only question I'd have to ask him. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for giving me an opportunity to ask a question. But sadly, I don't really think I would have many to ask that would really make much of a difference or get much of an answer out of. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have another one from Fuzz the Cat, who puts in a $3 donation and says, I suggested ask other country leaders what they could do to assist Vladimir Putin out of his present predicament.
That is an interesting idea.
However, I think.
But my thing is, isn't Vladimir Putin going to be at the APEC conference?
I believe he is. I don't really know much about the APEC conference, but still, it's you know, I guess it's just the thing. You know, they're having some kind of a conference. They're going to ask some questions. I mean, like maybe they could try and get him out of the hole. Honestly, I feel like he's dug himself in so far. No one's even going to try and help him if he is there. And you know, and in world politics, once you get to that level, it doesn't really work that way because you have to coordinate meetings and security and all that stuff. So you can't really just have a one-on-one talk. But with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Now, this is going to sound kind of like far-fetched at first, but like seriously speaking, I wonder what prevents us from simply kidnapping Putin when he goes to the APEC conference. And my thing is, would Russia actually do anything in response to that, or would they just let us take them and that would be the end of it? I seriously wonder.
They would do something in response, and what stops us from kidnapping him is security. So with that, I hope that...
I mean, the security he's with, it could probably be overcome by if there was forces nearby.
Like, how do you mean overcome?
Like with enough forces to outnumber his forces.
So you're saying
take down the Secret Service. I mean, I can't say that because it's YouTube, but technically speaking, you could try to kidnap him.
Well, yeah, but if you did that to a Secret Service, they could say that you're that you're going to hold them hostage or something and start a war over it. So I don't know.
But here's my thing, though. I wonder if the Russian government actually wants to keep Putin there, or is it just because they're so fearful to take him out that they don't? So if we kidnapped him, would they actually do anything, or would they just simply try to move on and forget it?
I don't know. I mean, like that's a.
I mean, it sounds far fetched, but like seriously, I wonder like how many in the Russian government actually support Putin.
That's a pretty good question. We'll throw that to the live chat so that way we can see what people think. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, who says, chat question, thumbs up.
And thank you so much for the support, Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin. It's good to have you back, and thank you so much for supporting this channel. And we will get a chat question. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So the live chat question goes to, let's see. Kevin, who says, do you think if Russia had fought this war differently from the start, they could have won? I believe had they bombed Ukrainian military instead of civilians, they would be in better shape.
And you would be correct. They would be in much better shape. They have wasted a lot of their munitions and efforts on civilians, which only makes them look bad and also ends up killing innocent people and wasting their time. And so if they, well, then again, that's not entirely true because they targeted Ukraine's surface-to-air missile defense systems and they ended up hitting the old ones because their information was outdated and they didn't hit their modern anti-air systems. And so I don't think it would have even changed if they had done that. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you once again for the support. Really interesting question. And also thank you so much, Putin will hang in the middle of the Kremlin, for sponsoring that live chat because it does help this channel to keep on running. And also it helps us to get the live chats. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Fuzz the Cat, once again, who puts in a $3 donation and says perhaps they could offer to kidnap Mr. Putin and keep him safe in hiding for the rest of his natural life. And that's a good idea.
And that's an interesting idea. But I'm not sure if he'd be willing to do that because he is power hungry, and there's no hunger to the power if he's captive. So with that, I hope that does address the question, the comment fairly well. It's still an interesting idea. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And also, our next one goes to Dupper Bob, who puts in a $2 donation, and also Dr. Doom 1313, who puts in a $1 donation. So thank you very much to both of you for the support. Y'all didn't leave comments, but we do appreciate it very, very much. And that rounds out our super chats for now. So we're moving on to our live chats. And first up from there, we have a question from...
real quick, Mandy,
yes?
Did we cover the one from Fantamos?
Fantamos?
Yes.
Where do you see that?
Just a little bit up in the live chat.
Oh, no, we didn't. Fantamos, I almost missed yours. It slipped by me there. But anyways, the Fantamos puts in a $2 super chat and says, UK Prime Minister declassifying Russian agents list in Europe / Ukraine.
I don't know if that's the question is asking, are they? I don't know the answer to that question.
at all, actually. I wouldn't know. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one. But thank you so much once again for the support, Pantamos, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I gotta say this, because I don't really feel like this is anything too political. Liz Truss actually was outlasted in her prime ministership by a cabbage. Did you know that, Matthew?
Outlasted by a cabbage?
Yes, the Liz Truss cabbage. This cabbage. Let me show you the picture right here. This cabbage actually ended up outlasting Liz Truss as the prime minister. It's I mean, here's a picture of it right here. They put a little googly eyes on the lettuce. They said, "Can Liz Truss outlast this lettuce?" And it ended up that the lettuce outlasted Liz Truss. Not talking about the politics or anything like that, but this is the shortest serving prime minister in British history right here by far. And it was hilarious to see that everyone was like, Liz Truss is in and Liz Truss is out. Like, it almost happened instantly. I forgot who she's been replaced by so far, but still, that was a really weird moment in British history. It's just 2 months of a prime minister, and then that's it. It's over. And also some people are
worthy.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you know, when you're a prime minister,
Political, by the way.
well, it's not. This one isn't really political, because when you're a prime minister in Britain, you don't get elected in by the public. The party that's in charge picks you. So right now, it's one of the parties. We're not going to say which one, because you know that's getting into politics over there. But the party that's in charge had a former prime minister who then resigned, and probably all British prime ministers resigned. And then this one this one was picked out by the party to then be the prime minister. They got in. They didn't really do any, and this is just, you know, of course, objective, because this is why she resigned. She didn't do anything well at all. Pretty much bombed everything that was the plan, and then she resigned 2 months in, and now they have a new prime minister. But this this was just, for some reason, it was just hilarious, because it's almost, he didn't even have time to get acclimated. But interestingly enough, she will have the claim to fame that she was the last prime minister that Queen Elizabeth II met. So that is one thing. And so with that, I hope that addresses that for a second. And now...
Wait a minute. Oh, man, you clicked off of it. I saw a picture down there I wanted you to click on, but never mind.
And also some people are saying we didn't pick her. That's the thing. That's the thing about Britain. And that's not what it means in the U.S., man. Because in the U.S., when someone says, we didn't vote, that's not my president, they're talking about the entire election was just wrong. In Britain, they don't actually...
They get the representatives to basically elect the president for them.
Yeah, so in case if you're an American viewer, you don't know if you don't know how British government works, in Britain, to try and make it as close to the American system as possible, you would vote for your representative. Your representative would go to Congress. There is no Senate. The Senate, in this instance, is not elected. It's appointed. You pick your representative, and your representatives go into Congress, and whoever's party has the most representatives, they then get together and they pick the representative that will lead the country as the prime minister, or in America's instance, the president. So that's what. So if a British person says we didn't pick her, they actually mean we didn't elect him, because the British public doesn't elect prime ministers. The party in charge selects the prime minister. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I think they have a vote of no confidence over there, so if they don't like the prime minister, they can get them out pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there's also a whole bunch of other weird things like snap elections and stuff. There's no like set election time. It could just be, oh, you don't believe in my party? Snap election, and then you could just lose it all, or you could end up getting a majority of the House, the House of Commons, without really even having to wait for a normal election time. It's a really interesting system on how Parliament works. But with that, it is now time to get on to the live chats.
You're right. And next up, we have a question from the Pack Rat, who says, with Putin now downplaying his nuclear rhetoric, do you think it could be, again, false statements in a possible attempt to use a dirty bomb at some point in the future?
And I was thinking that when he said those comments, it's almost like a prelude to, we're not going to use nukes. Nuke goes off in Kherson, and then they blame it on the Ukrainians, and then they go back to that previous statement saying, we were never going to use them anyways. That's got to be Ukraine. I was thinking that could be the direction it's heading in, and so I'm glad that other people are thinking that as well. But once again, that's entirely speculation and assumptions. We don't really have enough information to work off of to say whether that is the plan or not. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Bob, who says, "Is the Kerch Bridge still reduced in capacity?"
The Kerch Bridge is still... Well, actually, the Kerch Bridge is still reduced in capacity. For some reason, I thought you were talking about the Antonovsky Bridge. The road bridge has practically been knocked out. Only one lane is open, and we do not know the condition of the railroad bridge, although I'm assuming that it is still being subjected to limited traffic, or if there is heavy traffic, is causing a massive strain to the bridge itself. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I did put up a poll to see if people thought I was insane for wanting to kidnap Putin from the conference. It looks like a little over half of you think that it might be a possibility, and it looks like 31% believe that it is a pretty good possibility, while 46% said the consequences would be dire. So very interesting results. I thought a lot more people would say it was insane, to be honest. But anyways,
you're batty, Matthew. You're batty.
Yes. But anyways, moving on to our next live chat question, we have one from Ronald Schmidt, who says, "Do you think that Russians are using these guys to burden the Ukrainians with prisoners?"
I don't think they are, because Ukraine, like, one thing that about war is that if you start to have too many prisoners, you have an obligation to care for them as long as it's within your ability. If you don't have the ability to care for them, you're not expected to care for them. So if they get too many prisoners, they'll just start to leave them derelict, let them starve or just hang out or something like that. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
Right, and up next, we have a question from C. Fei, who says, "Did you notice yesterday the Russian military guys, just after the 10 to 25 day training part, were carrying SKSs for guns?"
I did not see that, and I have to go back and look at that, but the SKS is a terrible gun. I have had one before I ran this stream. Hated the gun. It was a Norinco version of the SKS, which people say is a little bit worse than the normal Soviet version, but still, it sucked. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. We are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Dakman555, who says, "Could the Ukrainians fly a couple of drones over the Kremlin with blue and yellow smoke grenades to send a message?"
They could. I think it would be better if they sent them over with a couple of, not smoke bombs, but the other kind, if you know what I mean. That would probably send a little bit better of a message than the other, although that would still be pretty cool to see. And so with that, I hope that answers the question. We are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Brian Delario, who says, "Do you think the Russian Federation will collapse after the war, just like the Soviet Union did?"
It may. I don't think it'll fracture into smaller pieces like the Soviet Union did, but it will definitely, the government will fracture, and we may see a new one take its place, although I'm not entirely sure. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Next up, we have a question from Jabba, who says, "Will Putin ever pay for the atrocities done against civilians in Ukraine?"
It depends on whether he has to flee from Russia or not. If he has to, he may be. If he doesn't have to and the government survives, he probably won't be. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And next up, we have a question from Turbo GSR, who says, "Enforcer, what is your path to politics? Do you plan to start at the city council level and move up, or start at the state legislature first?"
I plan on starting on the federal level, going for a state representative, and then working my way from there. At the same time, I kind of have a little bit of hesitation on that one, because once you become a state representative, for the federal level, it's, I don't know. I mean, at that point, it's like, are you becoming a career politician? And that's one thing I don't want to be. A politician should be there for a purpose. I don't like any politician that's like, look, I got a representative seat. Isn't that sweet? And then they sit there for 40 years. They become so old that they're just sitting there. They don't even know what they're doing. And then they sit there and go, "Oh, look, I'm too old to run, but I'm going to appoint my daughter. Everyone vote for her." And then the whole district just votes for his daughter. And it's almost like feudalism. It's like the Lord dies, and so the Lord's son or daughter takes over the fiefdom. It's like, what in the, I cannot stand that, and I do not want to fall into that kind of position. So I would think I would start off at the state representative level for Congress, but at the same time, I would hope that I wouldn't become a career politician. And of course, looking at the timetable I'm going with, becoming a state representative around 25 and becoming president at 35, hopefully I wouldn't become a career politician. I would just be in the state representative position for about 10 years and then become the president for 8 and then just bow out of politics, because at that point I would have done what I was there for.
And you know, oddly enough, Enforcer, it's actually easier to get elected to be a representative than to get elected locally, because typically you have to be pretty well connected to get to win a local election.
And that's true. You know, I'm not.
You have to know everybody in the place.
Yeah,
basically.
You have to know everyone in town. So with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have actually, we have the Morse code decoders. I almost forgot. CFA, Mark Hodges, and also Draconiate figured it out. They say the code says Russia's supply lines February 24th and 25th, 2022 have gone and forgotten about Putin. And that's it.
And also, also, that was a little bit jumbled there, but what it was said was gone but not forgotten in quotations, and then it said V Putin. I think Matthew may have misread it all or something, because it had a lot of Huh?
I didn't misread it.
Oh, well, still, that is the Morse code message. Ding, 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 ding. You are correct. And the supply lines were gone and forgotten right at the very beginning of this war. And so with that, thank you to our Morse code decoders for doing that once more another night. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and I think this might be our second to last one of the night, and it goes to Maple Leaf Spring, who says, did you hear Canada is creating war bonds for Ukraine? Canadians and other financial institutions can purchase these bonds.
I actually have not heard that. That is actually pretty interesting to hear, and I wonder how that will work. It will most likely just work like a normal war bond, but still very interesting to hear, and I will try and look up some news and information on it. And so with that, that was the final question of the night. And of course, if you did enjoy the stream, please make sure to hit the like button. We've gotten 2,600 likes tonight. I wonder if we can get that up to 2,800 before the end of the stream. Of course, it's been an absolute pleasure to cover the past 24 hours of news. If you did enjoy it, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well, because that'll keep you apprised of when these streams run, which is every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. We take that day off. However, there will be 2 videos coming out this upcoming Monday. One will be a Halloween special. The other one will be Matthew's upcoming video. Also, we have a $10 super chat from Sweaty Chungus, who said, I was trying to take a break from the shenanigans by playing DayZ, and then I heard you hating on the Norinco SKS. Are you crazy? The Norinco with the Dragunov ATI stock is a scalpel. Let's go to the range. And I thank you for the support, Sweaty Chungus. But I gotta be honest with you, I had a Norinco SKS. I just didn't like it. I didn't like that giant back of the receiver that was just all flat and stuff. But still, I thank you so much for the support. Maybe we will go to the range someday. Maybe. And so with that, once again, thank you everyone so much for watching. Now that we've rounded out on that bombshell, it is time for us to end the stream. Good night, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine here on day 249. On Sunday, we'll be covering day 250 of the war in Ukraine, and of course, it will be another great Sunday fundraiser. Good night, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you all then.
Вічно славі Росім, слава Україні!
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, своїй сторонці, душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що